morning, and I have to start with a little preamble here. This is a public hearing for proposed Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen Bylaw number 2912-2023. The proposed bylaw and related information, including written comments received to date, is available for review at the head table. At this public hearing, all persons wishing to speak will be given an opportunity to do so and are asked to commence their remarks by stating their name and address. Written comments may be submitted to the head table before closure of this hearing. Anyone wishing to speak at this public hearing is asked to do one of the following. If you are participating in person, please step up to the microphone. If you are participating by a computer, please click the raise hand button, which can be found in the participants panel on the right-hand side of your computer screen. This will indicate that you wish to speak. If you are participating by a phone, please press *3 on your phone's keypad. This will also indicate that you wish to speak. Having indicated that you wish to speak, you will then be placed in a queue until you are invited to speak. All speakers will be restricted to a time limit of 5 minutes until everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to speak a second time may do so by following the same protocol of selecting the raise hand button on your computer or by pressing *3 on your phone's keypad. To submit written comments, please email them to planning@rdos.bc.ca, or for those attending in person, place them in the box on the table marked Public Submissions prior to the close of this public hearing. I will now ask Christopher Garish, Senior Manager of Planning, to outline the specifics of the proposed bylaws. Please go ahead, Chris.
Great, thank you. And I've got a PowerPoint, which I'll just wait to get up here. Okay, great. So I'll just start with some quick background in terms of where the proposed amendments started. So it was a board motion that was accepted September 3rd, 2020. There was 3 parts to that amendment, which I'll cover in the subsequent slides. First was that ESDPs only be applied to subdivisions and rezonings. Second, that options be brought forward to make ESDPs more effective at the subdivision and rezoning stage. And then number 3, that ESDPs should not prevent the fire smarting of properties. So going through those one by one, so for everybody's benefit, the current triggers, and this is just a generic example because of course we're dealing with multiple electoral area OCPs, but the current triggers for an ESDP are subdivision, the construction or addition to or alteration of a building or other structure, and alteration of the land, including grading removal, etc. So in order to respond to the first part of this motion, it's being proposed that subsections B and C be deleted, and that would just leave subdivision as a permit trigger. In addition, it's also being proposed that the subsection of the environmentally sensitive development permit area guideline that deals with the rapid environmental assessment application option be deleted. The REA, the rapid environmental assessment, was devised and primarily applied to building permit applications and is not seen to be appropriate for assessing subdivision proposals. And in the third part, just a point of clarification, because there are no specific amendments proposed in relation to rezoning. ESDPs are not triggered by rezoning, but as the board is aware, an environmental impact assessment can be requested at the rezoning stage, and usually the basis for such requests are the ESDP mapping and whether it applies to a property or not. The second part of the motion, that options be brought forward to make ESDPs more effective at the subdivision and rezoning stage. So shown here, and I apologize, this should be in red. The subdivision, so this is a new guideline to be incorporated within the ESDP designation. So it's basically setting out that subdivisions should be planned, designed, and implemented to protect environmentally sensitive areas. I won't read the whole section. A couple of minor tweaks as well. These are 2 existing policies. So because it's being proposed to remove building permits as a trigger, the references to development be substituted with subdivision. And you can see that's also proposed for this other existing policy as well. And also, it is proposed to rewrite an existing policy that's found in the OCPs. And this just speaks to how the board would assess a rezoning application that's involving land in the ESDP area, and looking more favorably on those applications that can adequately respond to the values on a property versus those that don't. And then the third part of the motion in relation to fire smarting. So again, a clarification, because there's nothing specifically being proposed to be amended in relation to fire smarting. And that's primarily because if the triggers for land alteration and vegetation removal are removed as a permit trigger, then there is no requirement for people to seek RDOS approval when undertaking fire smarting activities on their property. And then the last slide, just a point of clarification for everybody that there is no change proposed to the current ESDP area mapping, which is shown in the image on this slide. It will remain as it currently is. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I declare the public hearing open and ask if there is anyone who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaws. I see a hand in the front row first. Go ahead. If you could just start by stating your name and go ahead.
I'm Robert Hanfield. I live in Culleton. I'm a scientist, a geologist by education and training. I've lived in 4 different countries around the world. I've taught environmental geology at the university level, and I've been involved in the local issues wherever I've lived. I've served for, up until recently, for more than 12 years on the Area D and then subsequently Area I APC. So I'm pretty familiar with what's going on. So I want to start by saying that these proposed amendments have left me almost speechless. Almost, but not quite. My friends would know I'm never speechless. So as a scientist, I try to base important decisions on the facts. These amendments, in my mind, qualify as important, and I can see no facts that support enacting the amendments that delete the 2 triggers. Now, I understand that politicians may make decisions based on desires of the constituents rather than on facts, but I haven't seen much evidence that the residents of the RDOS are clamoring for these amendments. In fact, most of the evidence I'm familiar with points the other way. Scientific polls conducted by reputable polling organizations over the past 20 years show that a vast majority, and by vast I mean 75% or more, of RDOS residents rate preserving the environment as a high priority. Previous boards have also indicated that preserving the environment is a high priority. The RDOS vision statement says, "We envision the regional district of Okanagan-Similkameen as a steward of our environment, sustaining a diverse and livable region that offers a high quality of life through good governance." The amendments proposing deleting those 2 triggers, the first amendment, how does enacting that support the vision statement? And if you don't support the vision statement, why is it on the RDOS website? As to the scientific facts for rejecting these amendments, you've heard over the past decade or so from a large number of qualified groups and individuals about how critical the South Okanagan-Similkameen is to maintaining biodiversity in southern BC. There's no need for me to repeat those arguments. This year, the Canadian Wildlife Service, a branch of the federal government, not only presented you with evidence as to why the amendments should not be enacted, they and other qualified people have offered suggestions as to how the current bylaw could be improved. In contrast to the many reasons why these amendments should be rejected, the only argument I've seen in their favor comes from the RDOS planning group, who say the current bylaw is flawed. I agree, it is flawed, but that if these amendments are passed, it will be even more flawed than it is now. The Central Okanagan Regional District has a very similar bylaw, and they make it work. In fact, they require that a bond be posted of 125% of the estimated cost of the work, and they follow up. There's no evidence that our system doesn't work because nobody's ever collected any evidence. I urge this board to have the courage to change their minds and reject the first part of the amendments. Finally, I want to say, and this applies to the rural members because I know the municipal members don't vote on these things. This board should be ashamed of itself for having a public hearing 4 days before Christmas when people have commitments. They've traveled to see family, they're out of town, and to schedule it at 9 a.m. when working people can't get here, or if you live in Princeton, you got to leave home before the sun is remotely up. So, that's just poor planning on my part. I think this meeting could easily have been scheduled after Christmas when more people are around. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Please, sir, come up and.
Morning, Mr. Chair, board members. My name is Doug Lchak. I reside at 297 Heritage Boulevard, and I'm here representing the Heritage Hills Lakeshore Highlands Community Association. We have approximately 100 members. My background includes a degree in environmental studies, and I'm a land use planner by profession, and I've been the chief planner in a number of major cities and regional districts. I've always insisted that environmental studies be required as a part of development in every municipality where I've served. I think it's one of the highest priorities, if not the highest priority that we can look to. I won't repeat Bob's comments because they're so well taken. Bob and I worked together on the Area D Planning Commission for a number of years, and certainly I respect his judgment, his opinion, and his advice to you. May I say that this bylaw is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, there are some issues with implementation. There are some problems with implementation. And if those are problems for the RDOS, then seek legislative changes or regulations that allow you a stronger hand in implementation. I have seen too many cases where people are abusing the environment out of hand, front-end loaders dumping rock and soil into streams and drainage areas. Absolutely ridiculous. And the RDOS has a bit of a history of closing the barn door after the horses close to Kelowna. My neighborhood happens to be developed on very steep slopes. After the neighborhood was virtually fully developed, the RDOS introduced a steep slope development policy. A number of neighbors have had to put in very expensive retaining walls, had to dig out slopes that were endangering their property, had to put in fencing to stop the rocks from falling onto their homes. That policy should have been in place prior to development. We also live in a neighborhood where the sewage treatment plant has catastrophically failed. And now I see it's privately owned. And now the RDOS has just recently adopted a policy not to permit privately owned sewage and water plants anymore. That policy should have been adopted about 20 years ago. So get out in front, be strategic, be visionary, and please do not pass this bylaw. Keep it in place and strengthen it. Make it better if it needs assistance, if it needs more help in enforcement, because it is an essential for the future of the environment to be saved and preserved in the state that it's in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there some other individuals? Sure, come up, please, sir.
Hi there, I am Bruce Shepard. I reside at 158 Ponderosa Avenue in Cleveland. I am a retired fisheries habitat biologist. I can't agree with the RDOS board's proposal to have the ESPD process no longer apply to property owners past the subdivision stage. I'm told that other regional districts in the Okanagan are successfully following similar programs, yet RDOS proposes to discard this tool, as this gentleman just said, baby out with the bathwater, rather than finding the will and the resources to properly monitor and follow up on the permits. It's even more puzzling given that RDOS has received environmental recognition in the past, and the very first goal in the vision and broad goals section of the area official community plans is, quote, steward and protect the area's natural features and systems, including sensitive and endangered ecosystems, fish and wildlife habitats, and wildlife corridors, unquote. The proposed amendment is a significant move away from the environmental stewardship that RDOS claims to support. Rather, it's a step onto the down escalator to environmental ignorance. It's just a fact that people, and I'm talking about property owners, won't protect what they don't understand. RDOS can and should do better than this. Please walk away from this proposal and do not approve this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? I see a lady with the hand. Please come up.
Hello, my name is Margaret Home. I live at 705 Sunglow, which is in Area F on the West Bench. I know that rural directors and all directors are responsible for thinking about the resources required by their staff to enact various bylaws. And this might have been some of the reason why you were thinking that it would be good to downgrade this bylaw so that there wouldn't be as great time requirements made by planning staff. I just wanted you to think about the fact that there are resources out there to improve this bylaw, to explore what other regional districts are doing. As you know, the other two regional districts in the valley, as well as all the municipalities, they still maintain a strong environmentally sensitive bylaw. So discuss how these other local governments are doing it. I also encourage you to accept the help that's been offered to you by the Federal Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. They've offered you, I think, some staff resources perhaps. I know that they have very healthy grants for people to go, if you've got mapping problems, people could do better mapping, ground truthing. So you do have resources to think about that you could accept before really taking this very, very important bylaw and making it apply to so little of the development that's going to be occurring. We all know there's a great deal of housing pressure on you as rural directors. And so it's going to become increasingly important in the next decade because you are going to be facing a lot more requests for development. There's new provincial changes coming on. So far, they haven't affected rural areas, but they will. I know I talked to Director Gettens about a year ago and I said, you know, West Bench seems like a perfect place for perhaps having subdivision. She said half the people I talk to want to help out their children and the other half want to help out their parents. So we're going to be seeing more provincial legislation that encourages likely changes in rural areas as well. So this ESDP bylaw will become increasingly important, and to remove it from rural area private lands, I think is a real step backwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I've seen another lady with a hand up. Please go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Eva Durant. I live at 1120 Jonathan Drive on the West Bench, Area F. And I'm here speaking today on behalf of the board of the Okanagan-Similkameen Stewardship Society. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to this very important environmental issue. The board is, I'll just state up right up front, very much against the proposed changes to the bylaw. The OSS Society supports primarily private landowners who are committed to protect and restore sensitive habitat and wildlife on their properties. As such, we consider upfront programs such as the ESDP to be critical to help prevent habitat damage and wildlife disruption in property development. I won't repeat what the other people have said about the RDOS's vision statement and broad goals on protecting environmental natural ecosystems. I want to mention, though, that in 2012, the RDOS did adopt the report on keeping nature in our future, and a few years later implementing the South Okanagan Conservation Fund, which is for research, but it has the same goals of protecting and in some respects restoring wildlife habitat. The ESDP, however, is on the ground program at the level of individual properties, which can make a significant difference in preventing destruction, disruption, and fragmentation of sensitive and critical wildlife habitats. If I interpreted correctly, the pie chart that was in the presentation to Regional District on this issue, about close to 70% of the damage that occurs in property development is on individual residential development. As the speakers before have said, both the regional district, the other regional districts, and all of the municipalities in the valley have robust ESDPs. And I noticed that in Summerland, they even put a few successes at the end of their guidelines, which I thought was a nice touch. So I can see no apparent reason why one that has been upgraded, improved, added to cannot be effective in this way in the RDOS. However, as has been noted before, since there hasn't been any post-permit monitoring or statistical evaluation, the effectiveness of the program here cannot be ascertained. So we strongly recommend that the directors support retaining the SDP and strengthening it. It obviously needs some improvements, but there have been suggestions made by the federal representative and the provincial, and some assistance with possibly hiring a biologist environmental planner. Something else that might be considered, because I noted in the presentation that there was some question about the applicability now of the ESA mapping that had been done many years ago. We wondered too if there could not be better coordination with the other regional districts, at least, and perhaps with the municipalities on an ESDP. I think that rather than apply more stringent regulatory species at risk legislation over private lands, the federal and provincial governments rely on local governments to protect species at risk voluntarily through their land use policies and regulations. So we ask that the RDOS rural board members support an improved ESDP, not a diminished ones. Please show your commitment to protection of our area's unique and irreplaceable natural world and your environmental mandate. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I see another hand at, ma'am, if you'll come up, and then the gentleman at the back, and then I do see a hand online as well. So.
Good morning, Chair Pendergraft and board members. My name is Doran Olsen, and I live in what I call rural Culleton, 168 White Lake Road. During the years I've lived there, I've been a volunteer in the community, and I've also been a member of the APC in Area D and Area I. Amending the environmentally sensitive development permit is very serious to the OCP. Despite a previous commitment in Similkameen, I have decided to come here instead to express my views. Having said that, your scheduling for this public meeting is quite disrespectful to the community, being only 2 working days before Christmas holidays. It's not only disrespectful to the people, it's also disrespectful to the commitment to the land stewardship and to the significant nature of the amendment. More time is really needed to discuss this issue. I live on a property that has 8 eco zones on 77 acres. I've been fire smarting this property around my home and the grounds for many, many years. There's much more to do there, but fire smarting has not affected the quality of the biodiversity. In fact, careful stewardship and fire smarting has enhanced the habitat and reduced invasive plants. Any comments that the ESDP prevents individuals from fire smarting seems mostly untrue. The RDOS has shown leadership in establishing environmental tools like the South Okanagan Conservation Fund that will protect species and engage citizens to protect the region and its biodiversity. Recently, the RDOS has announced a program that targeted the removal of and treatment of 3 species of invasive trees, which choke out natural vegetation and ecosystems. For many years, the RDOS has participated in the Bear Aware programs that will help people, will help to prevent human and bear conflict. The RDOS has been supporting the long-standing Okanagan-Similkameen Invasive Species Society, which has been actively participating in preventing, detecting, and the management of invasive species in the South Okanagan-Similkameen since 1996 to address invasive species and their pathways to spread. Has been mentioned before, the Planning Development Committee of the Regional District resolved to accept Keeping Nature in Our Future, a biodiversity conservation strategy for the South Okanagan-Similkameen, as a guiding document for the Regional District of the Okanagan-Similkameen, an amendment of official community plans. All these are forward-thinking programs that support the RDOS's vision as a steward of our environment and the mission to initiate and implement policies which preserve and enhance the quality of life and serve the broader public interest in effective, equitable, environmental, and fiscally responsible manner. The proposed amendment to the environmentally sensitive development permit is just backward thinking. It does not align with the RDOS's vision and mission, which can be found, as others have said, on the RDOS website. If this bylaw is not working, it needs to be revised so that it does work. And that means working with other groups like the Canadian Wildlife Service and other local groups and governments to clarify regulations, monitoring, and opportunities to make this development permit work. This bylaw needs to be improved, but not scrapped. Thank you for listening, and I hope you will consider the thoughts of the community.
Thank you for your comments. The gentleman at the back there, please come up.
Good morning. My name is Don Gayton. I live at 10920 Ackland Street in Summerland. I'm a consulting ecologist. I have a master's degree in plant ecology. My primary concern about this bylaw amendment is the impact on an area that I like to refer to as Chapaka, Kilpoola, and Kobo. About 50% of that is within the ESDP area. This is the future National Park Reserve. That will be the heart and soul of that National Park Reserve. That area, Kilpoola, Chapaka, Cobo, has some of the highest biodiversity in the entire country. It also has some of the highest concentration of species at risk in the entire country. So weakening this bylaw would have a direct impact on the future of that biodiversity and on that national park. So I disagree wholeheartedly on the weakening of this bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'll take the lady at the back first, and then I've got someone online I'll go to next.
Good morning. My name is Judy Harris. I also live at 10920 Ackland Street in Summerland. I am not here as an environmental specialist, as many of the speakers here have been. My expertise is actually in governance. I have a master's degree in public policy. And one of the things that I noted this morning in some of the comments was that no one here is quite sure what the impetus was to amend this bylaw in the first place. We haven't seen lots of people out in the streets asking and demanding that we lower the environmental standards in the area and amend a bylaw like this. The only comment that I really would like to make is that several years ago in Summerland, the elected officials were voting on whether or not to remove property from the agricultural land reserve. And also there was another proposal, a wrong-headed proposal, to do development above the fish hatchery, which would have impacted the fish hatchery and the water quality and so on. And let me just caution you that the people who voted in favor of those very wrong-headed, environmentally damaging proposals aren't in office anymore.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. I'm going to go to a couple of people online. I'll start with the first one is Evelyn. If you could start, please. Can you hear us? Evelyn?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, do I need to start over? Did you get my name and address?
Yeah, if you would just start by stating your name and go from there.
My name is Evelyn Ky, and I live at 228 Pineview Drive in Culleton. Due to the timing of this meeting, I find myself out of town, which is why I am just calling in. I am not an environmentalist. I am not a scientist. I am not a biologist. I'd like to say I'm representing the common person living within the regional district. I have lived in Culleton for over 37 years. During this time, I have watched riparian areas being filled in, not just once, but twice. I have watched huge trees of ponderosas being cut down in sensitive environmental areas. The things that I have watched happen in my 37 years of residency has started to make me an environmentalist. Our planet is in danger. Global warming is a worldwide crisis. I do not understand why the RDOS is not being more proactive in protecting our environment. In 2013, the RDOS resolved to accept Keep Nature in Our Future. I ask you, how is it that you're doing it with this change? I don't see it. I see it going against your own guidance. I believe in fixing things that are broken, not in discarding it. So let's take the time to look at how can we improve this. I don't want to take up your time in repeating all the valuable points that have been brought up, but please do not just blindly hurry this through without making the needed changes and improving it. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you for your comments. One more person, oh, there's a few online, but I'll go to, I'm not sure the name. It just says SNW. If you could start out, please. Can you hear us?
Hi, are you asking me, the SNW?
Yes.
It cut out. Okay, hi. My name is Shira Newell Wallace. I live in Culleton as well. And I'm one of the people who are working today. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to join in person, also given the timing of the hearing, but I still wanted to join to hear what was happening. There's been so many poignant comments made by some highly educated and engaged people. I couldn't even compare to their level of knowledge. But I am a concerned resident who is quite frankly simply unclear about why this proposal is even being considered. I have a question and would like to clarify that this proposed change would allow people to make changes to their own property that could also impact other people's property. So for example, like if a waterway stream was passing through multiple properties, one could choose to block that water from passing through their own property, which would inadvertently stop the water from reaching downstream properties. So I kind of would just like to understand how we've been able to come to a place where we accept that shared infrastructure like power lines and gas lines are required to pass through private properties. But if someone was fully off the grid and had solar, they're not allowed to say, oh, I don't want that power line on my property and cut down the lines, which would stop others from having access to power around them. So I'd like us to please provide the environment the same respect as we have already provided to the man-made infrastructure that we have imposed on private land owners. And we request that the board please walk away from this proposal and do not pass the changes to this bylaw and instead strengthen it. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'll go to one more online and then there's a few more hands in the room. Christy, if you would, or can hear us, please go ahead.
Sorry, you cut out for a second there. Is it Christy Tabby that you were hoping to speak to?
Yes,
Perfect.
Please go ahead, Christy.
Thank you very much. My name is Christy Tabby. I am a resident of the Greater West Bench in Area F at 714 Newton Drive. My property is about 1/3 environmentally sensitive development permit area. I'm also a longtime Penticton resident. I'm a registered professional planner with a master's degree in community and regional planning. And I have close to 20 years experience in sustainability planning. So from that perspective, I would like to echo a lot of what you've heard already. I won't take up a lot of time repeating points either, but just to reinforce that elected governments have a duty to act in the public interest and on behalf of those who don't have a voice in the planning process. So among others, this includes our future generations, but also our wildlife, our endangered species. As you're aware, ESDPs are intended to protect these habitat areas in support of biodiversity, which conveniently also helps increase our resilience in the face of climate change and future disruptions, which we're already seeing on a regular basis and will be facing in the years to come. It's become clear through this process that, excuse me, the format and function of the current ESDP isn't working very well. It's been ineffective in achieving these aims. It's cumbersome and costly to homeowners in the affected areas as well as to RDOS taxpayers as a whole, and this is a problem, agreed. It also sounds like there's a bit of ambiguity around who, whether the regional districts or the province, hold the jurisdiction to enforce these DP areas and provide the legislation with more teeth. And this is obviously a problem and needs to be remedied so that these bylaws can function as they were initially intended to protect those sensitive areas from development. And as others have said, it doesn't make sense to, and I put this in my letter and I didn't actually speak with any of the other speakers, but use the same terminology of throw the baby out with the bathwater. If something isn't working, to throw it out entirely doesn't make a whole lot of sense to further weaken the existing tools that we have. Instead, let's seek to find solutions to refine and improve these tools. If the mapping is problematic, then let's fix the mapping, but let's not throw it out entirely. Just in terms of my own property, the mapping seems to align really well with what's going on the ground in terms of the habitat areas that we do have here. So in summary, I don't support the proposed bylaw amendments and would urge the board to reconsider and to step away from the amendments. We owe it to ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren to protect the few sensitive areas that we have remaining. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I've got one more online and then I'll come back into the room. Leah, if you can hear us, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Lem McKinnon. I'm from Penticton. I have a master's degree in conservation biology, and I work as a biologist. I don't actually have anything to do with the environmentally sensitive development permits. I'm not involved in any of the environmental assessments or anything like that. I would like to speak against the first proposed change to the bylaw. I think it's important to keep environmentally sensitive development permit areas as they are, applying to all lands within those areas. And a lot of time has been given already to species at risk, particularly when you were talking to the Canadian Wildlife Service. But I think it's also important to note that these environmentally sensitive areas provide services to the community. So they provide water filtration, water storage, pollinators to agricultural areas. They help to provide clean air. There are, of course, risks with them too, because these are sort of interface areas where you might have more risk of wildfires. But I think there is a lot of scope to make changes to the bylaw and the way that it applies. I don't think that fire smarting is incompatible with having the ESDPA apply on private land. And so I think that all in all, it would be a mistake to continue down this road and to get rid of the ESDPAs for everything except for subdivisions. Thanks for hearing me.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I've seen some hands within the room, gentlemen, and then
Good morning. My name is Randy Cranston, and I am currently the chair of the Cleveland Community Association, and I live at 227 Ponderosa Avenue in Cleveland. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of the letter that we wrote on December the 8th to the directors on behalf of the Cleveland Community Association, where we're, again, wondering why this amendment would even be before you, but also indicating our concerns with regards to the amendment, and that we encourage you to vote against the amendment and instead ensure that there's something in place before getting rid of the only tool in place to protect the environment within the regional district. In a previous life, I was an assistant superintendent of schools, and we spent time doing, as I'm sure you have done, developing visions and mission statements. One of the things I learned was that often those things are developed, put on a nice plaque on the wall, and never referred to again. One of the things we did in the school district I worked in at a school level, with children, with parents, and with staff, and at a district level, was that any policy and procedure changes that came forward to a staff meeting, to a student council, because we taught children to use mission and vision statements as a filter for decisions that were made. The same thing with trustees at a school district level. Any changes had to align with that mission and vision. Because why do we spend that time going on retreats to develop those if we never refer to them again? A waste of time. Previous speakers have referred to your mission and your vision that is public on your website, which has words like environmental, steward of the environment. Again, I do not understand how this bylaw has been filtered through your mission and vision. Thank you.
okay. Thank you for your comments. Tom, I see your hand next. Please come up. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mark and friends. I think you're a friend too. All the years I sat at this table as the regional district director for Area D, I see that our present director, Sabrina Monteith, is here, and I want to congratulate Sabrina for her foresight and wisdom in not supporting the proposed amendments, given the years of history that have gone into where we have arrived in regard to the environmentally sensitive development permit area, which is before the board today in this public hearing. I wish from all the years we spent working toward what you're wrestling with today, that some of the work that went into this might have been remembered by some of the rural directors who seem to be hell-bent for destroying what directors at this table have spent years to produce. And I want to just remind you of some of that work. I don't know where the new director for Area D stands on this issue, but I hope where he stands is where we all have stood to protect and manage this unique and beautiful environment that we're privileged to share and protect for our grandchildren and their grandchildren in the long-term future of the South Okanagan. So I've copied this page off of your website this morning, and it says here under environmentally sensitive development permit area that the Okanagan and Similkameen valleys have some of the most endangered habitats in Canada and are home to large numbers of species at risk. For some species, this is the only place in Canada where they are found. Using mapping generated through the Keeping Nature in Our Future biodiversity strategy, the regional district has established development permits for environmentally sensitive areas in the South Okanagan. ESDPs are used to minimize the impact of development on the natural environment and generally apply to areas and activities on privately held lands outside of the agricultural land reserve. ESDPs are required prior to any disturbance of land or vegetation, and it is best to contact the RDOS as early in your planning process as possible. Now, I read that to remind you, not that you've not all read this note, but that's what we're here for, to keep nature in our future. And since I was a little kid growing up along the Red Deer River, and my dad used to take me fishing when there was an abundance of fish to be caught, and I lived in a coal mining area near Drumheller, I've always been concerned about nature and protecting it. And I would think every director here would feel likewise. This is the only future we have. Oh, by the way, I didn't identify myself as Tom Siddon. I'm supposed to have done that at the beginning. And I live at 286 Pineview Drive in Kaleden, overlooking a very precious riparian area, which we call Sickle Point, as it's been known for over 120 years now. And we have had to fight for the last 30 years to keep it from being bulldozed by a particular developer who planned to build houses down there without having to go through any process of environmental scrutiny. Meanwhile, I was watching the Stellar Jays feed at our bird feeders this morning, and all of the other endangered species, including the up to 12 deer who like to frequent our backyard because we haven't built the high fences that most newcomers build to protect their properties from the wildlife. But I enjoy wildlife. I want my kids, my 11 grandchildren, and their successors to have the privilege we have and the responsibility that we share to protect the environment we have. Some few might know that I'm a rocket scientist, and I don't want South Okanagan to look like the surface of the moon or any of those other interesting places in outer space that we would like to hope some species survive upon. I grew up in the home of the dinosaurs, and some people think I'm still a lot like a dinosaur. But I had the privilege of excavating the bones and giving them toward the development of the Terrell Museum of Paleontology. And of course, the lifestyle of the dinosaurs was very different than ours, but they were all wiped out in the space of a few seconds by one large meteorite. We have the privilege and the responsibility to protect what we have. And it's no secret that the RDOS has spent up to 20 years, at least 14 years, to support the development of the South Okanagan-Similkameen Conservation Area Plan, which was brought to us by a lady who many of you know, Bryn White, who can't be here today, but sat for many hours at this board table, helping to enlighten us, and she worked under contract to the RDOS to bring nature into our future. We had mayors and city councilors, and still have today, elected all the way from Osoyoos to Vernon, and supporting the Okanagan Basin Water Board and the Water Stewardship Council. Some of those directors have sat at this table. I think it's an absolute slap in the face and insult to now propose to water down the environmentally sensitive development permit areas that they worked so long and hard for, back to John Slater and Sue McCortoff, the current mayor of Vernon, all the way up and down the Okanagan. We want to keep nature in our future. And what you are proposing to do, ladies and gentlemen, with largely the encouragement and urging of the rural directors from the South Okanagan, is eradicate all of that work that's gone on for the last up to 20 years. I want to just, and I have a couple of copies to hand to you, Mr. Chairman, because what I'm saying you are well familiar with, having been director for, or chair of this board for many years, and having been one of the advocates for the people of the Osoyoos area in trying to protect this environment. Someone who worked closely with us, Bryn White, was honored in 2019. She was honored for her dedication to conservation and the environment. And she received the Meadowlark Nature Festival's Outstanding in Nature Award in 2019. She's left us now and is now employed with the Nature's Trust of British Columbia. But Bryn had a lot to contribute to the work toward what this board appears today to want to undermine and unravel through these proposed amendments to the ESDP legislation. And Bryn had a very strong vision and dedication to protecting and preserving the South Okanagan landscape, the living species and creatures, as well as the forest resources that surround it. And fire smarting in BC is an example of how we would hope to all commit to protecting those resources and not putting them in further danger by making sure that our properties are protected from buildups of leaves and foliage that might be flammable. But a landscaping guide is not the law that allows people to bring bulldozers in and plow up the land and level it and kill all the living species, trees and foliage that support the birds and the four-legged critters. We have an obligation to protect that. And I hope and I would trust that the board members remember that we created the South Okanagan Conservation Fund here at this board table. And the fund raises $450,000 each year in the South Okanagan. And Bryn White was one of the architects of that fund. After the first year, the funding of projects was over $400,000 within the first year, supported by the taxpayers, I might add. And the result of an additional funding for these projects that were generated by the multiplier effect was another $2.1 million. So how can we erase all that and eradicate all of this labor and dedication to preserving the environment, this unique environment we possess in the universe, just to satisfy the interests of a few landowners who just want to do their own thing? and not be concerned with when you're elected to city council, when we vote for our political leaders, we have a responsibility as property owners, not merely to look after our own property, but to look after our neighborhoods and our communities for the well-being of our children and their future. So, I mean, I've been here long enough and people know I have usually got enough words to say. I'm going to leave you, Mr. Chair, with a couple of copies. One was the letters we wrote to John Horgan, the Premier of British Columbia, a few years ago, over the court-ordered sale of Sickle Point in Culleton, BC. Some of us here today have been fighting to protect that endangered area for at least the last 30 years. And unfortunately, we've had a hard time getting politicians in Victoria to seriously consider the concerns we've raised. But it's all about preserving what we have, for which we have a responsibility as intelligent human beings to protect it and to preserve it for our children in the future. Thank you very much, and I hope you will not proceed with the proposed amendments until you hear more from the public who have very strong concerns about what you're trying to do today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. If you could just leave those copies at the desk there, we'll get them. Thanks. I thought I seen some other hands. Please, sir, come up.
Hello, my name is Scott Smith. I live at 1012 Veteran Drive on the beautiful West Bench. I serve as the chair of the policy committee of the Okanagan Water Stewardship Council, which is the technical advisory committee to the Okanagan Basin Water Board. And I'm a consulting soil scientist in my spare time. I just wanted to acknowledge a couple things. One is that I certainly understand the nature of the burden and responsibility that our rural directors bear with respect to the environment. You are really in a unique situation with respect to the environment that you oversee. And I also appreciate that's not a light burden, but one that you need to and you do consider all the time. I think the other thing I wanted to acknowledge was, as I have seen in many of the documents, that the development permitting process does place weight onto the staff here, and that there are some obvious inefficiencies in the current system. So having said that, though, you've got support and you've been given suggestions from others how you can modify the process to make it work better. And I think that should be the challenge that you embrace, is how can we essentially tweak this system to make it work better. There have been some suggestions for minor exemptions that you can make that would make the system work better. There's some suggestions around pre-screening. Certainly, we've heard from a number of people. Speak to the other regional districts in the valley and see from them their successes and their challenges. There's a capacity issue with respect to the staff here that I appreciate and understand. But again, you've been offered support from various other levels of government. Take those opportunities. Take them for what you can. You've got Environment Canada offering staff for a position to help you with this. You've got other regional districts in the valley that have systems that have been working well for them. Learn from them and what they have to offer. There's a suggestion to try to standardize environmental sensitive area bylaws within the valley. See what opportunities exist there for you. Other regional districts are keen to share with you their processes and their challenges and their successes and their difficulties as well. So my message to you is let's not throw this thing out. I would urge you not to proceed with this amendment proposal, but take those opportunities that are before you to make this work better and help you with your responsibilities with respect to the environment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else wishing to speak to the proposed bylaws? Ma'am, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Megan Fisher. I'm a registered professional consulting archaeologist. I live at 170 Arlene Road in Culleton. And I'm coming here just as a resident and a citizen, and I want to express my grave disappointment in this. We have very few tools. You have ineffective tools. Make changes. I'm so impressed by so many of the speakers here, and it makes me feel really proud to be part of this community. But I'm really disappointed. Everything, I just want to echo everything that everyone else has already said. I'm not a very good public speaker, I apologize. But I also see one really interesting note because of what I do. I know that MOTI also requires QEP and various other levels of investigation before a subdivision happens. And what I see you doing is passing the buck. Don't destroy what's taken years to make. The weak tools that you have, they're ineffective. Fix them. Pull up your pants. Do your job. Sorry. Don't take it personally. Just do your job. And don't vote for these changes.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishing to speak to the proposed bylaws? Go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I appreciate it. My name is Shannon Marfleet. I live in Culleton at 121 Maple Avenue. I would like to voice my extreme disappointment and disgust in the RDOS board's plan to amend the environmentally sensitive area permitting bylaw. This is 2023, not 1963, and scientists around the world have long proven that climate change, deforestation, water pollution, natural resource depletion, and biodiversity loss are some of the biggest threats affecting our very lives and futures. Despite knowing this and hearing recommendations given to you from scientists, from Canada Wildlife Services, the province, and local biologists, you insist on removing the one bylaw you have to protect environmentally sensitive areas in the RDOS. This doesn't make any sense, and it goes against the mission and vision of the RDOS, including your promise to your constituents to keep nature in our future. I've heard the arguments from the board that the ESDP should be amended because the current process isn't meeting its mandate and because of problems with fire spark protocols. Unfortunately, you haven't given us any evidence to support these claims. Conversely, you've received ample evidence from the scientist I mentioned earlier that the ESDP is critically important for this area. They've given you recommendations on how to improve the permitting process, and I would strongly encourage you to follow their recommendations. They seem to know a lot more about this than you do based on your questionable decision-making process thus far. Rather than completely disabling the ESDP and encouraging a free-for-all to developers, I suggest you follow the example set by our neighbors in the Central Okanagan Regional District, who have a successful system in place with their sensitive terrestrial ecosystem development permit program. Amending the bylaw and starting from scratch will take years and leave our land vulnerable to unscrupulous development. We should instead strengthen the bylaw, in part by adapting systems that are already in place and working well in the CORD and other places. The RDOS is a beautiful place to live, and we need clean water and clean air now and for future generations to be able to maintain its livability. It's very important for you to take a step forward, not backwards, to protect our environment. It would be inexcusable for you to do away with environmental oversight in this day and age. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw? I'll ask for a second time. Is there anybody else wishing to speak to the proposed bylaws? Am I missing anybody online, Danny? Okay. For a third and final time, is there anybody wishing to speak to the proposed bylaw changes? Seeing none, I will hereby call the public hearing closed at 10:06, and thanks you everybody for your attendance and patience. We do move right into our regular agenda, and we start with the Corporate Services Committee. Ms. Moulton, go ahead.
The documents that are being passed around right now, they're just so everybody could have a quick look. If anybody would like copies of them, just please let me know.
Okay. Thank you for that. There's some documents being passed around, so just for everybody to take a look at. We do have a proposed agenda for the Corporate Services Committee before us. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I believe we start out with a delegation. CAO, is the delegation in person or are they online?
The delegation is just coming in.
Okay, we'll just give them a sec.
Yes.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the time. I'm going to be drawn over to your sweater the whole time. It's like squirrel, crow.
Yeah, with that blinking light, it does attract your attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, go ahead.
Anyway, thank you so much. I'm Tom Tischik, and I'm the Executive Director of Travel Penticton, which is the destination marketing agency for Penticton and area. And thank you very much for me allowing that one there. Perfect. This time to speak to you. This is actually, I think, the second time that I've been in this room. I can't remember exactly what the first time was, but what I wanted to do is give you a bit of a vision of what we've been doing with Travel Penticton, but moreover also speaking to, I think, what people are interested here, which is the Visit South Okanagan initiative that we're working on as well and have been for a few years. So I'll move through quickly. I think it's pertinent to give you a bit of a vision of what we do and how we operate first, so that gives you an idea of where we're coming from and what we do. So Travel Penticton is a membership organization of 250 plus hospitality and tourism businesses, not only in Penticton municipal boundaries, but all the way down to Osoyoos and up to Peachland. And I believe we have a couple of members here and there over in the Similkameen as well. We operate off the 3% MRDT, which is a municipal regional district tax, of which actually we receive 2.8% because 0.2% stays with the province in order for the province to offer funding for large events like FIFA or something like that that might happen. We have a 5-year agreement with the City of Penticton, Destination BC, and the Ministry of Finance for tourism marketing right through to 2027. And it must meet the approval not only of my board, but also of Destination British Columbia. We do get grants from various sources that come in. We don't apply for a lot of grants, but we do receive them on occasion and for special projects. And then we do receive funds for regional situations such as the Visit South Okanagan initiative, where we receive partnership money from Destination British Columbia. We have to follow a 5-year strategic plan and an annual tactical plan. and we have just submitted the tactical plan at the beginning of November. And it is very comprehensive as to how we operate and how we do our budgets and how we report. As I said, there's a lot of performance and financial reporting, and also an important situation is the Meet in Penticton Convention Bureau, which we started in January of 2022. The first year was basically a brick building year, and then this last year has really gone far to build capacity to bring conferences, meetings, trade shows, and things like that into Penticton during the need periods, which is October through to, we feel, May. So this is how it works. 3% goes in, is collected by around 41 properties in Penticton, only within the municipal boundaries. And then it flows through to the province, to the Ministry of Finance, and to Destination British Columbia, who manages the MRDT program. It goes directly to the City of Penticton, who is the designated recipient to receive the funding that comes in from the municipal regional district tax, and then the city flows it right through to Travel Penticton. I won't go through each one of these, but I will say that there are a number of things that we do, and hopefully all of you do follow our hashtags, the Visit Penticton and Visit South Okanagan. Maybe you've noticed that we've done a considerable amount of work on television, through radio, through social media, and so on. And I wanted to also mention that, and I say this to the City of Penticton when I go to council meetings as well, almost every single time, is that quite often Travel Penticton is the first face representing the community and the immediate region. So I wanted to give some context on the fact that even though our funding comes from the municipal regional district tax and also a fee-for-service contract with the City of Penticton, we actually are what we call a mini regional DMO, which means that, yes, we market, obviously, the iconics that we have within the City of Penticton area. So it's going to be things like the channel, the beaches, the sycamoose, those kinds of things. But we also, over the past 7 years that Travel Penticton has been in operation, we look after some marketing for Summerland, Bottleneck Drive, the Kettle Valley Steam Train, and Summerland and Trout Creek. We also work to promote the Naramata Bench, Naramata Village, certainly the Kettle Valley Rail Trail, Three Blind Mice mountain bike area, and right up to Shoot Lake Lodge. So it is not within just the municipal boundaries. And then the bottom part of our triangle goes down to Okanagan Falls and area wineries, the Kettle Valley Lakeside Trail from basically Wrights Beach Campground down to OK Falls. And then also, importantly, one of our iconics that we like to promote is the District Wine Village. That also includes, Apex Mountain Resort, Nickel Plate, and those areas as well. So we do have programs that we operate out of Travel Penticton. I won't go through each one of these for time, but I do invite you to read through them. A couple of things of note: we are working now on a value of tourism assessment, and we have engaged a company out of Vancouver, Intervistas, to work with us to really build and give you information on the value of tourism. So not only the City of Penticton and City Council, but also for the regional district, we feel it's extremely important for everyone to understand and appreciate the importance that tourism brings into this region. We've had some challenges, certainly, with wildfires and road closures and provincial government travel shutdowns. That has been significant. But I will say that even as we sit here right now, we're in another bit of a crisis, and that is the lack of snow. And that is extremely difficult for a large operation such as Apex Mountain Resort, which is really looking at laying people off right now. Is this only for Penticton or Apex? No. It's a climate situation, but it is serious. And so we are really feeling for how we can try to
stimulate traffic into the region with what we've got going out there right now. So we also do things like the immediate disaster response. So we initiated a program called Real Time way back in 2018. And that was because when there were fires happening in other parts of the province, or there was smoke in other areas, but we were clear, we were painted with the same brush, meaning that people thought that the province was completely closed because of a provincial state of emergency. And so that's not always the case. And so while there are issues that do happen in local areas or communities, and if we're not affected, we certainly still need to try to stimulate traffic to come into Penticton and area. So, initiative that we dreamt up at Travel Penticton is called Visit South Okanagan, and it's the Okanagan you remember. And so why we did this was to really try to stimulate traffic from Peachland right down to Osoyoos, also including within reason or participation, Smilkameen, and to get it so that those people who were here as kids and are now coming back with their children can come back and have the same kind of experience and pass that positive experience back on to their families. So we did this as a bit of a nostalgic situation. It is co-partnered so far with Destination British Columbia. And it is also designed to help those communities or those areas that do not have capacity to market for themselves. Now, I applaud those communities that are small, that still want to be vehemently independent and market their own. I get it, and that's absolutely perfect. That's awesome. However, volume and numbers does speak really well to how we can amplify and leverage the messaging that we want to put out to bring traffic into the region. So we're helping those communities without capacity. We work to engage Indigenous communities and tourism suppliers. It's to leverage marketing dollars and community, what we call UGC, or user-generated content. We have been a partner with Destination BC for at least 3 years. I think it's actually a little bit more. This is not normal. Normally, Destination BC will fund a project for a maximum of 2 years, and then they say, you need to be on your way and do your own thing. They see real value in this program. The other part of it is that they've usually say, you have to follow Destination British Columbia visual guidelines, meaning we have to use their logos, we have to use their fonts, we have to do things that make it look like DBC as a collective. They have not said we have to do that. In fact, they love this logo, they love the way it looks, and they love the theme. We want to build capacity of the South Okanagan as a destination. Maybe selfishly, we look at Penticton as being the hub because we do have more capacity for hotel rooms and so on, but that's not necessarily the case. There's Osoyoos, there's Oliver, there's Summerland, there's going into the Similkameen. There's all these areas that do have capacity and specialty product that we feel is perfect for that for travelers' individual wants and needs. Travel Penticton is the lead DMO. So we do all of the administration, everything out of Travel Penticton. And then we contract local people to do work. So we have Grant Media, who does all of our social media out there. And then we also utilize user-generated content by the VSOK partners. And that is a very important part of this program. When there's an investment from Travel Penticton or Summerland or Peachland or areas D or I, for example, there is a financial investment, which is not large. It's $2,500. These days, $2,500 does not go a long way, but we leverage that, and we need that money in order to get the money to come in from Destination BC. But the other important part of this is that we require and request, I should have said it the other way around, content from each community. Now, we know it can be difficult with the lack of labor or the lack of ability for people to be able to do that. I get it. But it is part of the program that we ask for work with our community or our regional district partners in order to supply content. If a person comes to me from any community and says, you didn't really cover what I was looking for, we'll say, then why didn't you provide that? Then we can get it out there and then we can leverage it and put it out to the community. And we are happy to do that. So that's a really important part of the program, is that we need to have participation. We just did a contest with Miss 604 out of Vancouver, and that was where we have a winter surprise package that also has people going to Corteo here in January. And that got a lot of response and a lot of feedback just on social media. This is our Instagram posts. So you can see that just this year we've done 455 posts and we have just under 3,200 followers. And for a program like this, to keep those people engaged is excellent. And we are doing that. And we are building capacity for all of our programs through Facebook, through Instagram, and we're starting to do a little bit more even on TikTok. So I think just to wrap this up, Travel Penticton does a considerable amount of promotion for RDOS, even just beyond this Visit South Okanagan program. So for the past 7 years that I've been engaged with Travel Penticton, excuse me, we have promoted all through Summerland, Apex, Naramata Village, Naramata Bench. We have partners out there with the Naramata Inn. We've easily done promotion all the way down each side of Skaha Lake, right down into Okanagan Falls and areas in between. So without any cost to any agency, we have been doing that work because we feel it's extremely important to have that collaboration and show the bigger picture. So we have not come to RDOS, for example, to ask for any kind of partner funding. We have done it strictly through the MRDT, which is, again, as I mentioned earlier, only generated out of the businesses within the municipal boundaries of the city of Penticton. We do not receive any of the funding any longer from the online accommodation platforms, or which is the short-term rentals. And we have never received it from short-term rentals that were, say, on the Naramata Bench or up at Apex or West Bench or anything like that. So we are strictly working off of the MRDT through the municipal boundaries. And I think that's very important for everyone to understand, so that when we do ask for a bit of an investment from the RDOS or from our private partners, we are very serious about using it in the most efficient way possible. We have been supported, like I said, with Destination BC for about 3 years. We've put in, just in cash, just over $25,000 into the program, and that doesn't include the sweat equity, I would call it, that we put in with our staffing, with myself, and our administration. We have a significant social media following that we would not like to lose. Also importantly, this is a direct benefit to industry stakeholders. So our job is to build awareness of the region, of the destination, and then to do conversion, we call it, into our local businesses, to make sure that the Hoodoo Adventures and the wine tour companies and the Channel Float with Coyote Cruises and Apex Mountain and all those places are getting a fair kick at extra marketing that they may not have the capacity to do. Again, I mentioned earlier, we support communities without tourism capacity or resources. And then, as I said, the VSOK is a shared responsibility program. So we're not going to do it all. We don't have the resources to do it all. That's why we ask for content, and just content, to be forwarded to us that we can put out there and grow the exposure. And that content is contribution beyond our contractors' work. So beyond Grant Media, who will put out a ton of content, but we could always use more, especially if you have in your areas specific things that you want to have covered, you have new product, or you have product that's potentially struggling and needs some more assistance. Tourism is extremely important in our valley. So is agritourism, so is agriculture. But when people talk about the Okanagan, often they say, oh, Kelowna. And we are working hard to say, no, it's not just Kelowna. Kelowna's great, and no doubt about it, and so is the whole Okanagan. But we want to be special down here in the South Okanagan and have it as an absolute destination. So thank you very much for your time. I welcome any questions you may have.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. I see Director Holmes. Go ahead.
I rarely say Kelowna is great. I'm from Summerland, and Summerland District of Summerland gives our local Chamber of Commerce a whack of money every year for destination marketing. And so two questions. One, is that partnership working? Are they providing you the content that you need for the Visit South Okanagan campaign? And secondly, so how in a case like ours does their Visit Summerland product work with the Visit South Okanagan campaign? And does it work well together, or is there like a lot of duplication here that we should think about?
So I meet with Sally Pierce from the Chamber of Commerce on a fairly regular basis, and we have conversations. We also work directly with Thompson Okanagan Tourism, of which I'm on the board. And so the three of us, with Ellen, Sally, and myself, get together to try to make sure that we're getting exposure for Summerland. Content-wise, we're probably not getting, like many other communities, we're not getting that content. And I think it's because of capacity. You know, when you've got one or two people working in a Chamber of Commerce or something like that, they just don't have the time. And we get it. Like, we understand that. So that's why we do have a contractor that goes out and does do shots of various areas, you know, going up Giant's Head or doing things. But we do that as well because we know we need to supplement the content. And so we have my person, Taryn, actually did a hike up to Giant's Head. We're just doing features on the Kettle Valley steam train right now. So are we working well together? Yes. Could we work to get better with all of these communities? Absolutely. There's always room for improvement and better collaboration with them. Maybe down the road, there's a conversation of how we can work maybe contractually with the District of Summerland to do something a little bit more. But I don't want to step on toes. That's not what I want to do here, and that's not my goal. My goal here is to make sure that we're getting the best exposure for tourism out there for the region.
Follow up on that, or?
Absolutely, and I actually live in Summerland, and I'm happy to pop by and go through it because this is a very short presentation that gives you just a very high level view of what we do. What we do is significant in the marketplace.
Okay, Director Ventimiglia.
Thank you. So I'm from the other end of the valley down in Oliver, and I'm just wondering, I have seen this Visit South Okanagan branding before. We've talked about it down in the South Okanagan and like it. But I'm just wondering, maybe I missed it in your presentation. Aside from the content that you receive, I'm assuming from Destination SOES, Oliver Tourism Association, those sorts of organizations, do you receive any funding at all, or is it just strictly content?
No, so we have partnerships with funding that has been confirmed from Oliver and from various other communities, Summerland. We're waiting on a few. We're waiting on 2 from the regional district here. And then there's a bit of flux going on with Peachland, with their situation with their tourism because of their changes to their visitor center. Destination Osoyoos is not part of the program at the moment, but they've had a challenging year. So we are actually looking to Incomeep, which is one of our Travel Penticton partners, which we think would be an exciting partnership to work with Incomeep and the Osoyoos Indian Band, because the product there is exactly what we're looking for. And no discount of Osoyoos, but that Indigenous product would be fantastic to have on board. So we're a work in progress right now. We understand that it's been a challenging year for a lot of places and a lot of people, but we can't stop.
Yeah, oh, for sure. So they do, most of us do buy in somehow.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Director Coyne.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got a couple questions and then we can do a quick dig. What's your what's your budget a year? Like, what are you guys operating off of?
For the VSOK, the VSOK is around 35 grand.
That's it.
35,000.
35.
So not a lot of money.
No. And then what about your Visit Penticton? What are you guys at there with your MRDT?
With our marketing team, our budget usually for a year is about 1.2.
1.2. Excellent. I think we should all get together with you guys and us on the Similkameen side so we can share some of our product. As you know, we've been working very hard over the last roughly 20 years to create a brand down there and separate ourselves from just the gateway to somewhere else. So, you know, and we're succeeding at that. And we've had a number of conversations about that. And I'd love to talk about opportunities on how we can create some circle tours, you know, especially around the KVR up through the Summerland and that from Princeton. And they're working on some trails down in the southern part of the valley as well. So it'd be great if we could all sit down and have a good chat about that in one day.
So you have no idea how long I've been waiting for somebody to say that. and the reason is well, there's a couple of things. One is I'm an avid motorbiker. And so I created a Let's Ride booklet that has maps in it that actually includes the ride from Summerland over to Princeton and back up and through Nickel Plate. And so we are including just in a motorcycle guide alone, the whole region, Similkameen, South Okanagan, and in through Penticton area. When it comes to things like the KVR, I'm a pretty much nightly rider of the trail that goes from Summerland right through to where the trail crosses the road along towards Princeton. We have people who have come into our visitor center and have been sold a cycling tour in Europe. Okay, so some companies said, go and cycle the Trans-Canada Trail, and they've done it, and they come into our visitor center absolutely banged up. And we would say, well, where did you come from? And they said, well, we came from Princeton, and it was just like literally hell. And so this is something where we have, specifically to the KVR, we have an asset. We have an excellent asset that we should not squander and lose. And this is something that I'm very passionate about, is to keep that KVR trail, because you won't get it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. But it is a perfect thread that brings all of these regions together, not only from, you know, Kelowna right through to Penticton and continuing on to Princeton, but also the link that goes right down to Osoyoos. So there's some definite advantages there. Does the trail need work because of washouts and so on? Absolutely, 100%. Are we trying to build a product and a reputation for people to come to the area? Well, that's our job, and that's what we're doing. Reputation management has become one of our lead items that we have to work on these days, because everyone's a critic. Everyone has a cell phone that they can say either good or bad immediately. And this is where our reputation needs to shine, because there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of places for people to go. And we need to absolutely make sure that we have the best reputation possible. And that goes along with the best product we can and have available. So I'm kind of being preachy, but
I was hoping you would.
but it's because I care about what we offer here and the reputation that we have when people leave the area.
I thank you for that, because I don't think people understand what the asset we have between Princeton and Summerland. You know, we have, I don't know how many trestles, except for the one that's missing, and tunnels and everything else up there. And we have a number of people that come to our community looking to ride that. And there was a lot of focus on the Tulameen side, which is gone. And the reality of that coming back is probably slim to none.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do something regionally to better the trail between Princeton and Summerland, because we've done a really good job on this side. But like you said, like, we have people coming now to ride that, and we're telling them ride the road, because, once you get so far up on the Princeton side, there, in some spots, their trail's gone. So we need to focus on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Director Roberts.
Thank you to through the chair. First of all, I'd like to support Director Coyne on his statements, again, being from the Similkameen. And now I know it's you in regards to that motorcycle guide. Being an avid rider with 4 bikes and have traveled on 4 continents doing motorcycle touring. I brought up when I initially got elected in our Similkameen group about putting up one, and then to my chagrin, Penticton beat us. But I did look at it. I was happy to see in regards to some of the loops. But again, it's one of those things very much like the trail that I think we need to be working more collaboratively, because there are a lot of treats in different places, whether or not I ride up to Sukasa, going past Area A, or going down to different areas into Princeton and Tulameen, et cetera, and parking in Headley at the Grand Union Cafe. There's a lot of different unique places to ride to, and I think that's very similar to the bicycle end of it. But I insure my motorcycles all year round, just because at any moment in time you have weather like this.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Director Bloomfield and then Director Gettins.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'd say that, this year, I think, this coming year is going to be one where we're going to be talking a lot about tourism. That's been kind of forced on us by the provincial government and the changes they've made to tourist accommodations. And so, this is just going to become a much bigger subject. It's not just about fires and floods and what effect they have, but it's everything else as well. And I think that building a more cohesive regional approach to tourism is going to be vital to seeing it being used to its best advantage. And I think that from the public perspective, if you want to know how the public feel about it, I think if you look at the work that's been done on the Adra Tunnel there above Naramata, and there's been, I think, close to $1 million donated there in cash and in kind for that project, and no government money. It's all been private donations, and so that shows the level of interest in the public in making sure that we have a great trail system in the South Okanagan.
If I may just quickly comment, and that is, if anyone here has the opportunity to go maybe from Vernon down along Kalamalka Lake and Wood Lake and the trail system there, and I think they're working hard on working with the Okanagan Indian Band to have the trail be contiguous right through to Kelowna. It's exceptional, and it's used a lot, and it's well maintained. And yes, it's a different situation, with creeks and things like that, but it is absolutely exceptional. And this is what I would like to have in this area.
Okay, follow up.
Yeah, I can do a follow up, and I can attest to that, because I rode along that trail when we had that Silver in Vernon, and the guide, he said that it was a beautiful trail, and it's beautiful all the way down to Okanagan Lake. And I said, what happens on the other side, heading down into the south? And he said, we have jurisdictional challenges down there. And so that's, I think we need to get over those, and we need to have a trail system that's as good as the one up in Kalamalka, because that is an exceptional trail.
Okay, thank you. Director Gettins and then Director Taylor.
Yeah, thanks to the chair. I just wanted to comment on the KVR around Falder.
That's provincially owned land, and our team, our community services manager, has been working with the province. We do have a design in place that includes a couple of bridges, but it's still waiting approval from the province, and we can't do anything as provincial land. And then, of course, we have the KVR through Greater Westbench as well, which doesn't belong to the regional district. So that is one of those examples. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out because I know the Falder, like the citizens of Falder would really like to see that repaired as well, but it's sitting with the province and we're hoping and optimistic they'll be approved. But if there's any advocacy or support, because this has been going on, I think since about 2020 that we've been waiting for approval. So it's certainly not on the RDOS side that's holding that up. So some provincial support would be great.
Okay, Director Taylor and then Director Van Elfen.
Yeah, in Okanagan Falls, we do have a small visitor information office, and I don't think there's a hope in anywhere that we would have gotten the visibility that we've gotten through that we got through Visit South Okanagan with a mural done up like one of the big boys right up there with Penticton and Summerland in the airport. You know, that's what we got for our membership. Nobody's going to come to Okanagan Falls because we ask them. You know, let's be real. So this is our way of getting them to come. And I think that as a regional district, we need to view tourism as a public good. It's a public benefit that we can support and look for a way of supporting that collaboratively to promote tourism using Visit South Okanagan. So.
Okay, good points. Director Van Elfen.
Thank you. Just going back to the trail from like Summerland to Princeton. Right now it's a multi-use trail. Do you envision it'll stay that way? I'm an ATV rider. Don't shoot me. But it's a shared trail. We've run into, not physically, but we've run into mountain bikers, horseback riders, and it seems to work. And I'm hoping that it'll continue that way.
So the trail on this side going up to Adra and Little Tunnel, it's multi-use, non-motorized multi-use up to Glen Fir, and then after that it's multi-use, and but that's at the point where the trail has a tendency to be in less pristine condition. I e-bike the trail at Summerland to Princeton area almost every night. And when I come across ATV riders, every single time they've been respectful. We've been respectful. I think the only time that I get a little bit miffed is there's some young buck on a dirt bike that punches it and rips up the trail bed, and that I think is unnecessary. But with all of the people who camp, up at Crump, up above there, and they've got their ATVs and things like that, everybody's been really good. So I think there's not a problem with having it as a multi-use, as long as there's respect mutually. And there's always, that cowboy here or there that is going to be an issue, and I get that. But I think we can't do it any other way. We have to have it as a multi-use. And if those people need to rip around higher, then go up into the high country.
Follow up, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that a few of us and some fellow members of council, we've ridden that trail. We've enjoyed it thoroughly. We've just been waiting for an invitation from the mayor of Princeton. We'd go visit, but we don't get it. You're welcome. Come on over.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Not seeing any hands. We thank you for coming in and updating us on this, and I'm sure you'll probably get a few people reaching out.
Absolutely. I can leave some cards at the front desk or here. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know. And I'm happy to meet with you. I've met with a couple of directors already, and I'm happy to meet with anyone. And I'll pop down to Princeton. I actually am very jealous of Princeton, especially for your visitor center and the way that you've done the work there to dress it up and make it look really good. And I've mentioned that to you before. Good job. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you. All right, moving on in our agenda, item C is the board policy review, and I'll turn it over to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. So this policy is in regards to the various policies that we have within the regional district. There's quite a few that are archaic, and during this year and the next few years, we're going to try to update as many as we can. This one here is in regards to the enterprise unit and also insurance policy. The administrative recommendation is that the enterprise unit data and service policy be adopted as amended, that the insurance coverage for rental and personal vehicles, director and alternate director, accident insurance, and the liability insurance policy be rescinded, and that the insurance policy be adopted as presented. Ms. Malden and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Looking around the board here, any hands or questions on this? Or direction from the board on it? Director Roberts, go ahead.
Through the chair, I think I'd accept it as presented.
Okay, so you're moving it? Mover, is there a seconder? Thank you. Did you want to speak to it? No? All right, it's on the floor. Any further discussion? Director Knodel, I see a hand. Go ahead.
I just not sure if this is the right place for it, but I want to make sure that going forward, as part of our policies, that we make it clear to the public on a whole that checking all the boxes does not guarantee a TUP for vacation rental at this point. Up till now, people haven't been made aware that it's a failure. It could fail. And I think that needs to be made clear at the board level when they start checking these boxes, that you're not guaranteed that TUP anymore. Thank you.
I think that's slightly different one than the ones we're updating now, but it's worth keeping in mind. Any other discussion on this? Seeing no hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to landfill customer accounts, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. So the Finance Department's been really concerned about the policies that we have for the landfill, and we need to reduce the risk. So the recommended motion is that the landfill customer accounts policy be amended as presented. And Noel's here to answer any questions you may have regarding reduced risk and if and why we need to reduce the risk.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Good. No hands? Looking for a direction on this? Someone prepared to move it? Director Miller?
Sure, I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Moved. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion? God, it must be close to Christmas. Everybody's quiet today. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. UBCM looking forward. CAO. Thank you, Noel.
Thank you. So one of the things that staff's been discussing is that we need to support the board at UBCM more than we have in the past. And we should be starting at Q1 with what the objectives of the board is and actually starting producing booklets and reports and actually start lobbying the province of who we want to meet, and let's be early. So we're looking with this policy statement, the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen endeavors to develop a clear, concise request for meetings at UBCM, which are supported by all members of the board. But we just want the board to know that we as staff will be here to support you in any way that you need. Okay. So no recommendation, it's just essentially a policy update, and Ms. Malden's here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, I'll go to Director Federigo first and then Director Roberts.
Thank you to the chair. It's great that we have a board policy on this. I'm just wondering if somewhere in there is talking about support from staff actually coming to UBCM with us. I think there was some chat about, certain positions being present and whether that needs to be addressed in the policy.
Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you. What I think the goal is that you'll have 2 staff members coming, so that there's a lot of different directors that may go different ways, and one of the staff would go one with one director and the other one with the other. Hopefully that there's only 2 at the same time. However, if we see that there's some of the appointments are 3 or 4, we want to have the support with you. I'm used to having the support. When I went with a counselor, I would be there supporting, and the deputy CAO would go the other way if there's more than one meeting. So yes, you're going to get support. Ms. Malden, is that in the policy that?
Ms. Malden?
It's absolutely not in the policy at the moment, but we will be bringing that forward in January for review. It's good for the board to look at the policy again. We certainly will put a red line version and add that into it, and anything else. Hopefully we'll get some additional feedback in January, and then we'll start, as the CAO says, really working towards getting concise reports together and meetings into the UBCM, so we're successful in actually getting those meetings that we requested.
Okay, thank you. Director Roberts and then Director Bloomfield. Oh, you're okay. Go ahead.
Thank you to the chair. Director Fedrigo did steal my thunder. Was going to ask that question, but also then to expand on it a little greater. For instance, I want to work with staff now in regards to 3 follow-up letters. Is there anything like in regards to a procedure or a policy to move forward with follow-up process? Because sometimes it feels like you're kind of reaching around the dark. Because again, we know it's speed dating when we're at UBCM, but if we have a more cohesive plan on follow-up in regards to those issues, I think that may be helpful, especially for those of us that are, well, I'm not as new, but still feel new. Thanks.
CAO or Ms. Malden?
I guess first to that, I would say yes, absolutely. We've recognized from many different directors that need for support after the follow-up, the letters, that sort of thing. And that's where, it can be a bit of a challenge with the resources that we currently have to do that. But certainly, yes, that is part of the whole UBCM process. So we would look to find a way to definitely get that done.
Okay. I've got Director Holmes, Director Taylor, and then Gettins.
Yeah, certainly when this past UBCM in particular, I felt very bad for the rural directors. I felt that with no staff there present at all for any support. I really sympathize with you guys. You know that you were being basically left out to dry, and it was pretty uncoordinated, the whole process. So that certainly, I mean, we can only improve, I think, and so I've never been to a UBCM without our CAO there as well, and that support is, I think we'd be lost without them providing that support, and also just the staff meetings they attend. I find also I think the municipalities and the RDOS could be working together better as well. We draw in Director Gettins several times in minister meetings that we've had to demonstrate a greater, that it's not just a Summerland concern, it's the rural areas around Summerland too, and that's been really great, and I think we should be working better together on these issues that transcend our boundaries. So I think that's one thing we should look at, we should consider when we're looking at, and also I think we need to, as a board, be a bit more really narrow down on what it is we want to come out of our UBCM meetings, and be a bit more selective on which kind of meetings we go to. I find a lot of the times we're going into minister meetings with some things that are quite operational, and they might be better suited for the staff meetings. And we want to think about how can we better take advantage of those staff meetings, which are much easier to get and sometimes more effective for depending on the issue. So,
yeah. CAO?
Thank you. That's the kind of meetings that we should be having. We split the political side and the operational side. And you're correct. It's a lot easier to get on the operational side. And you get to talk to the individuals that ultimately make the recommendations to the politicians. And I've had a lot of success like that. And those meetings should be prioritized by you, the board. So if you want us to lobby on something, that's something that we will come back to you and say, what do you want us to focus on? And at least 2 of us will be there with you. And if it turns out that the board wants to have something where it's more than 2 required, there'll be a 3rd member coming to those meetings. They're worth it. Every penny's worth it. And that at the end of the day, the taxpayer is the one, the client is the one that wins.
Okay, Director Taylor.
Yeah, just to follow up on what others have said, I think a pre-meeting, when we all land there, staff participation at the meetings, follow up to those meetings, very clear on what our ask is when we're at the meetings. I think it's also an opportunity for training for young staff, or younger staff, other than, like, I would really appreciate having you two there, but some of the group that might be moving up at some point, I think they would learn a ton. And lastly, I don't know if this is a caution or what, but when I hear the word prioritize, I get a little nervous because I feel that it's difficult for an issue that's important to an area to be important enough to the regional district to make it through your prioritization exercise that you would request a meeting for it. Example, Astor on the Beach. I so much appreciate the backing that this board gave me when I asked that. And I think somehow in your prioritization, you got to be thinking about what's important for the region and also what's just important for that particular area. Because, like I said, we got that meeting and we're actually getting some wiggle room. And we never would have got it otherwise. So just caution as you think through that whole prioritization piece.
CAO?
One last thing for me is one of the other things that I would recommend is that there's daily updates through the media, through our communications, to show the success and the goals of the board. So that's something that I'll be recommending.
Okay. Director Gettins?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just actually very similar comments, and I really appreciated being invited by Summerland to represent. I know that gets noticed by the ministry when we show up in partnership and as a collective, and I think that's really important. And also your prioritization. I think this is the table where our collective voice is the strongest. And if we could have a chance to strategize with our municipalities and what should come as a region, as that collective voice, because each municipality then has their opportunity to do their things. And exactly what you're saying, each area also sometimes needs something important as well. But I think we miss an opportunity when we just start throwing ideas out. We don't really know what's happening, and you're taking what you're taking, and last year it felt like a scramble. And I think we could have thrown this collective voice and this partnership behind a few of these meetings that were attended individually. So in the first quarter, as your CAO meetings or CO meetings, however that works, let's strategize so our very small population can actually have a chance at getting some more attention from the provincial leaders, especially coming up in an election year. So I think we should be using that together.
Okay, good points. Anything else? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. And I think the other thing too, it's also looking for partners outside of the regional district. So for example, Dr. Fassino from UPCO? No, Okanagan College. Yeah, Okanagan College was at the, the UBCM. And we were talking about how it might be good, next year to coordinate with, that organization to go to the Ministry of Advanced Education and talk about what opportunities for the city or in the region. When we have them at the table, it just, I think, provides more legitimacy to that we are supporting, advanced education in our region, and we want to see more of that and how we can do it. So I think it's really good to look out into the community of what organizations might actually be showing up to UBCM and showing up to those minister meetings with those organizations at the table as well.
Good thought. Director Coyne.
So that's one of the strategies this Smilkameen has done over the last, since I've been elected. We'll collaborate when we go into things because we have so many overlapping issues, right? So if Princeton gets a meeting with somebody, in the past, Manford has come, Director Roberts came, George isn't usually there, but if he comes, he's always welcome. And we usually go in as a region, even if it isn't something big. This year, Karamis went to something, and I sat in to show support that the rest of the valley was there as well. So it's good to hear that everybody wants to work that way, because I think that's the best way to do it. The province does appreciate when we show up and we show support to each other. They do get scared sometimes, but it shows that there's a commitment bigger than just themselves. So I like that. I do like I know it's the prioritizing, but at this board table, right? Like, let's prioritize here, and then we can put as much resources as needed into those things. Because this past year was, you know, not to be mean, but it was almost embarrassing because everybody was kind of on their own page. And luckily I was able to make it to most of those meetings and whatnot. And we were able to all, between Mark and myself, I think we made it to every one of the meetings. So, you know, otherwise, you know, it would have been just a director going by themselves in some cases. So, you know, we need to have that cohesiveness going in there. And I did have a few ministers and ministry staff comment that the regional district this past year was in shambles. So, you know, it's not good when they recognize it.
Director Taylor?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that last point. I think I've never really heard of directors going to meetings with politicians by themselves. I think government expects us to have staff in the room. That's my thought.
Yeah. Well, with the exception of last year, we normally have had. It's just last year, it got less and less the last few years, put it that way. Director Monteith.
Through the chair, just clarification, of all the UBCMs I've been to, all the minister meetings I've been to, we've never had staff.
Well, not just the CAO is the ones that he's attended. But he may have missed one or two in the past, but he's generally went to UBCM and attended. It's been that direction, yeah, a steady decline. Go ahead, Director King.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I think it's imperative that the CEO or higher up staff go to UBCM. I've been to many, and there's always some questions, even though you make decisions here, who you want to meet. They're there to remind you of what you're doing there and maybe have some information there at the time. That's an imperative that they go. Also working collaboratively. We've had meetings. I've been to many UBCMs like yourself. We've always had upper staff at the UBCMs. Hopefully you have a big budget because there's a lot of people that might want to attend. I don't know what your budget is to send people, but hopefully you have enough to send a few people. We've had Mark at some of our meetings in Osoyoos also as support regionally, looking for different things. I know it's hard to prioritize what you think is important, but I know if you've got 5 or 6, you're still at the mercy of the minister if they want to kind of open the door to you. So again, it's good to have 6 or 7 asks and then maybe get 5 if you're lucky. We usually get 3 and ask for about 7. Again, we're very happy we went because we did lobby hard and we were fortunate enough to get a $9 million grant to upgrade our sewer and water. So again, it's imperative that you send people there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Am I missing some? Oh, Director Knodel, go ahead.
Yes, and through the chair, I definitely look forward to having staff at the table. Had 2 meetings last year where information was given on to us and passed on. But without staff being there, I think the nuances are missed. And, you know, one of them was the hike and bike trail. And we do need to carry on with these. It just seems like they drop off the minute we get back. And that's not acceptable. It's not solving anything when it doesn't get followed up on. Thank you. Oh, one other follow up on that. I'm just wondering whether there's any possibility to join with some of the other areas. I do know that we were doubling up on some of our things, and it might be worthwhile to have some kind of a joint system where we're not colliding with other areas on the same endeavor, if you will. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're referring to where we've got 15 minutes and trying to squeeze 4 subjects into it.
Well, that and also other areas were presenting themselves on the same or similar issues, and that it might be better if we were in collaboration with, say, the regional district North Okanagan or
okay.
I really know what they're doing prior to UBCM, and possibly some contact there would help us bring things together in a stronger format, if you will. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a point. Which brings up something I'll just mention, and it hasn't happened for a number of years that I can recall. But between myself being chair now, there was Director Kazakovich who was chair, and then I was chair before that. But we used to have regular, at least annually, meetings with the RDNO and the RDCO, the 3 regional districts, and we would discuss is there anything that we can maybe take to UBCM or anything like that? That hasn't happened for years, so maybe that's something to look at revisiting. It's not a real time-consuming thing, so. Director Gettins?
Yeah, I thought that we asked Silga to take something. What did he take? Yeah, me neither. I think I asked. Yeah, it was, maybe it was invasive mussels or some. It was something that was, but yes, anyways, point understood. But I think we did it, but maybe not as officially, or obviously not as officially if we can't remember.
Yeah, it's just another way of trying to get everybody on the same page.
And because I think, it's important when we have such a small population and we're going to a provincial body, the stronger our collective voices, the more loudly we'll be heard. It's easy to ignore a population of our size when you've got Vancouver and Victoria and the coast and everything there. So that's important.
Okay. Director Coyne.
One, I think maybe we can initiate that if you want. I mean, we can reach out. Actually, you just gave me an idea. Why don't I take it to Silga and ask, why don't we see who wants to collaborate on the, like-minded meetings? And then if nothing else, we can at least include their package with our package to show there's support, or resolutions from their council saying they support this and whatnot. I can bring that to the next meeting, so.
Okay, good ideas. Anything further? What in the world is that icon I seen, Director Knodel? A party hat or?
Hey, good idea, Director Coyne.
Oh, okay. Anything further on this? Seeing no hands. Sorry, did I miss one? You go ahead, Director Holmes.
I was just going to throw in it. A lot of it comes, these potentially joint partnership kind of meetings comes from like talking at Silga and places like that. And like last UBCM, Peachland and us, we're trying to connect that BC hydro line with the Fortis line, which they meet in Summerland. So, if we're able to achieve that, the redundancy for
Would
the
be
whole
huge,
region
yes.
would be huge. And so we coordinated, and both Peachland and us had meetings with the minister to talk about that. And we coordinated with each other. And by good fortune, our meeting was right after Peachlands. And so back to back we went. But it was, that's all was arranged ahead of time. And I think, those are the sort of things you need to do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Director Ventimilla.
Well, just another success story would then, on the exact same vein, would be Oliver and Asuyas last year. I mean, we've been working on with Ministry of Health requests for years together. And last year, both requested individual meetings, which by luck or by some other sort of intervention, were back to back. And so we were all able to go in as a group with our support community people, as Director Gilbert suggested, and have half an hour of time, which was huge.
Yeah. Yeah, that 15 minutes is kind of tough to make any kind of a statement into. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Freedom of Information and Privacy Management Program, CAO.
Thank you. This is an information report on the Privacy Management Program and Freedom of Information. If you have any questions, Ms. Malton is here. Answer anything you have.
Go ahead, Mr. Director King.
Through the chair, has your request been up this year from the previous year? Do you know?
It's been down, actually. Even though the scrutiny and, demand for transparency on local governments has increased, our requests have been down. So we're happy about that.
We're fortunate. Is that what I heard? Okay. Anybody else? Director Taylor.
I really appreciated this moment to actually see what the nature of the requests was about. And I'm wondering if, what's the normal way of informing the board that we have a FOIP request, or that quarterly, this is what we've received? Is there a process?
Ms. Moe?
This is the process. So at the end of every year, I provide a report to the board indicating what type of requests we've received each year. We don't do individual, we don't do quarterly, we have not anyways. You know, we figure that's primarily operational, and what we want to report to the board is roughly what types of requests we've received, and leave it at that.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing no hands? Move on. The next portion is the closed session, so that in accordance with section 91A and 91C of the Community Charter, the board closed the meeting to the public on the basis of personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district, and labor relations or other employee relations. So looking for a motion to go in camera. Moved and seconded, thank you. All in favor? All right, any opposed? Motion carries. Just because that coffee maker's a little bit noisy. We'll give Danny a second to get us into the closed session. Tell me when we're back in open and then.
Motion to adjourn. Says we're live.
Okay, motion to close the meeting or end the meeting, moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. And just a quick announcement, we got really late, so next meeting will start at 1:15 for those listening online. And
Doesn't work, by the way. That's why we're sharing. Hello? Danny, this doesn't work. I'm talking. Oh, it wasn't working.
Hello?
In camera, the light was, but it wasn't working now. Hello? Yeah, okay.
Here and here, do you know?
No, I don't know it's here, but I know it was here. Okay. Okay.
We're good to go, Danny? Okay, thank you. If we could get back to our seats, we will get started. Looks like we've got a quorum here. So good afternoon, everybody. We will get started with the regular Regional District of Okanagan-Smilkameen Board meeting. We have a proposed agenda before us. This is a reminder to those that want to remove something from the consent agenda. This is your opportunity to do so. Anybody have anything they want to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing nothing there, or nobody wanting to do that. Motion to approve the agenda, moved and seconded. Thank you. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? None. Motion is carried. Consent agenda, corporate issues. Motion to approve that, moved, seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, development services. A motion for that one. A mover, seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us down to development services. Item B1, electoral area D, development variance permit, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application is seeking a variance for maximum retaining wall height that applies to the subject property in order to undertake the construction of 3 retaining walls. And the recommended motion is that development variance permit number 2023.041 to allow the construction of 3 retaining walls at 162 Silkning Drive be approved. Staff's here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I'll go to Director Taylor on this one.
I'm going to move that this be directed to the APC for their review and comment.
Okay, so you're moving the alternate to send it to the APC. Okay, moved, seconded. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Over to B2, a temporary use application in electoral area H, CAO.
This application seeks to allow a vacation rental use on the subject property through the issuance of a development use permit, and the recommended motion is that the temporary use permit H 2023.2.031 to allow vacation rentals use at 221 Prospect Drive be approved.
Go to Director Coyne.
I'd like to make the, excuse me, alternative recommendation to deny, please.
Okay, so you're moving to deny. It's seconded. Generally, with a motion to deny, we ask if the applicant is in the room or online and want to speak to it. Please, sir, if you could just come up to the table there in front and on one of those little speakers, press the button in the middle and the green light should come on and you're free to go. Go ahead, please.
Hello, my name is Adam Stevenson. I am the application and the owner of this property. I don't know if there's any specific questions, but I'll kind of give a little bit of a background of what we're trying to do here. My family and my wife and I and 2 kids have purchased this property recently as a family vacation home. This area in Missoula Lake is I think commonly known as a vacation area. A lot of people are temporary use users. There's a few people, of course, that live there full time. We would be interested in trying to make this a long-term family location for our family. One of the things that we want to do in the early parts of ownership of this property is have a short-term rental following all the necessary procedures and permitting so that we can offset some of the costs of this. The intent is to actually do this in a very professional way. Since it is our property, it's not the primary use of this property, and we want to make sure that all the right background checks and controls are in place. We also want to make sure that that we're taking very good care of the community and the area. And since being recently part of this community, we've been very transparent with all the neighbors and different parts of the community that want that wanted some more information. And on that front, I think there's been a long history of I guess there might have been rentals in the past in this, so I don't know the full history on this area, but what I do believe is that I want to be part of following due course and due process, and as opposed to others that might be in the area that have not followed the rules or may have caused negative outcomes. I have read all the different applications and feedback for our application and went through all of that with a fine-tooth comb. I do believe that there's a few different types of different feedback, but I think that some of it is based on assumptions rather than necessarily facts. One of the things that I really want to kind of take home is that I'm very interested in being transparent with everyone in our community. We want to be part of the community. That's actually what attracted us, is that there is a community there, and there's all these different types of events, and we intend to have our children and us there as much as possible, and only really rent it when we're not in the facility for a very small amount of time. I don't know if there's any specific questions.
Okay, I'll check with the board if they have any questions on this specific application. Don't believe I'm seeing any hands, so thank you, sir, for your update on it. We'll put it back to the board to deal with. So we've got a motion on the floor at the moment to deny. Any discussion on that? Director Coyne, go ahead.
So this is, excuse me, this is the same application. The application is now getting to the board. This is the property that was discussed in the earlier this year with the petition from 70 odd members of the community that were dissatisfied with the guests that were at this particular residence. And this went on right up until there's comments on the Airbnb site as late as October of they rented this place out. There's questionable parking. Their property is on a very small cul-de-sac that any vehicles on the roadway there create a traffic hazard, for lack of a better word. It's a very tight corner to turn around, or cul-de-sac to turn around in. The other thing that's really needs to be known here, that I don't know how many people really know where Missoula Lake is, but it's 29 kilometers from the Highway 5A on a gravel road. There are no emergency services available there. There's within an hour. It takes BC Ambulance about an hour to get there, and the same thing with policing. There is no reasonable time for a police officer to get there when there is a problem. There is no fire protection there, which was stated in the application that there is a volunteer fire department there. There isn't. There are fire standpipes that the community has put in, but there is no structured fire department. Just if your house catches on fire, you can run out and grab a fire hose and try and put it out type of scenario. Yeah, it's just been a real problem this past year. These folks have ran it all summer, and I received multiple complaints about the property. There was bylaw was out. Actually, the one day that I was there, the bylaw was there, and it's they've had a year. They've been operating it for a year, which is what the TUP gives you, is a year to try it out. And from what I've seen and what I've heard from the rest of the constituents out there, it was rather a dismal failure for the community on as far as they were concerned. In your package, there's, I believe it's 56 letters against this TUP. It's a very small community. It's very tight community. And at this time, there is just no desire or will to have a vacation rental of this nature out there. So, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Not seeing any. Sir, go ahead, CAO.
Chair, just a question was asked by the director why we are recommending it when there's so many opposed it. So I just would like the senior manager just to make a brief description, a brief presentation, verbal. And here he is.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Garish.
Hello.
Hello.
I think I've missed something.
Yes, maybe the CAO better state what he just said again.
The director asked why we made a positive recommendation.
yes,
I
okay.
spoke to you about that.
Yes, sorry. So the situation in Area H is that when we did the temporary use permit review in 2013, H wasn't included. And so its bylaw is silent on the matter. And so in those situations, we will look to see if the regional district has set a policy direction elsewhere and then take direction from that. So in this instance, we looked at the Okanagan bylaws and our understanding of the policy direction. And in those bylaws is generally the board supports temporary use permits for vacation rentals in residential areas subject to certain criteria. And so that's what we base our assessment on. And we appreciate that there's a lot of community opposition to this particular proposal, but our assessment is based on what's in the bylaws. And in this case, we took direction from the Okanagan bylaws, not the Area H bylaws. That informs our recommendation.
Okay. Good to know. Anything further on this? This is a rural vote, and the motion on the floor is to deny at the moment. So seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to B3, a parkland dedication for electoral area I, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. As part of a proposed 25-lot subdivision, subject property, the property owner is proposing to make a payment to the regional district in the amount that equals the market value of 5% of the land being subdivided. And the administrative recommendation is that the Board of Directors require the owner of the land described in Lot A, Plan KAP 27201, District Lot 2463, Section 3 and 10, Township 88, accept Plan SPK 180 to provide cash in lieu of parkland in accordance with Section 510.1B of the Local Government Act, and an amount of $78,500 be paid to the regional district as fulfillment of the requirement of Section 510.1.B of the Local Government Act for the subdivision of the property described as Lot A, Plan KAP 27201, District Lot 2463, Section 3 and 10, Township 88, except for Plan SPK 180 within 6 months. And staff's here to answer any questions.
Okay, Director Monteith.
Through the chair, I'd like to make the administrative recommendation, please.
Okay, so you're moving it. Seconded, it's on the floor. Any discussion on this? Director Bush.
Yeah, so how does the environment plan work on this case with the subdivision? Does it all kick in like 100%?
I'm thinking you're meaning ESDPs?
Yes, that one.
I'm have to ask staff.
So this property is the subject of our last remaining land use contract. And the land use contracts, when they were signed as a contract, they're not subject to other regional district land use bylaws. And so we can't apply requirements from those other bylaws to the contract area. So as long as the contract is in place, development permits do not apply. So neither the environmentally sensitive nor the water course DP are applicable in this instance.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion, Director Monteith?
Through the chair, I know it's a side conversation, but that's exactly why my community is against it. So, anyways, thank you.
Okay. Checking for any other hands. Again, this one is a corporate vote. Director Coyne, go ahead.
I'm confused here. Director Monteith just said their community's against it. So are we recommending approval or denial?
I'll clarify.
I'll let her clarify. Director Monteith.
Sorry, separate application or separate thing.
Oh.
My community supports this, what we're talking about right now, but what Director Bush was talking about with the event, the environmentally sensitive development permit, my community definitely came out, said that they did not support,
Those changes.
yeah, those changes. So if those changes were in place, this property would have had to gone through that process, but it didn't. And it's going to affect the environment because there are sensitive areas on that property. So it's a travesty, but it is what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Seeing no hands, as said, this is corporate, so all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Over to B4, OCP and zoning bylaw amendment in Area D, CAO.
Thank you. This application is seeking to amend the zoning of the subject property in order to facilitate a one-lot subdivision, and the administrative recommendation is that the Electoral Area D Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2603.24 for 2023 and the Okanagan Valley Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2800.30 2023 be read first and second and proceed to public hearing, and that the Board of Directors consider the process as outlined in this report from the Chief Administrative Officer dated December 21st, 2023 to be appropriate consultation for the process of Section 475 of the Local Government Act, and that in accordance with Section 477 of the Local Government Act, the Board of Directors has considered Amendment Bylaw 26.03.24 2023 in conjunction with its financial and applicable waste management plans, and that the holding of the public hearing be scheduled for the Regional District Board meeting of January 18th, 2024, and that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirement of the Local Government Act, and staff's here to answer questions.
Director Taylor.
Yeah, I'll move the administrative recommendation.
Okay, so you're moving it. Is there a seconder for that? It's on the floor. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Quiet bunch here today. This is a motion that will be voted on by rural again. So all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to B5. And on this one, I'm going to ask the vice chair to chair this one. So I'm at liberty a little bit more to speak to this one versus, so I can speak to it from my area's point of view versus the chair. So I'll turn it over to.
Thanks, Chair. Vice Chair. So yeah, B5 is the environmentally sensitive development permit area review, CAO.
Thank you. So the proposed development amendment for electoral areas A, C, D, E, F, H, and I, official community plan bylaw will update the policies and guidelines related to the environmental sensitive development permit area in order to remove land alteration and construction of a development requiring a development permit. And the recommended motion is that the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen Environmental Sensitive Development Permit Area Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2912-2023 be read a third time. Staff's here. To answer questions.
Comments? Motion? Director Holmes has his hand.
Just a question for clarification, if I may. So when the last meeting, when the government agencies were presenting and we've always heard about this offer to help, but have we since heard any specifics in terms of resources, money on the table, helping with anything?
Yeah, CAO.
Thank you. I've approached both senior levels of government, and they stated that they're willing to talk to us in January, but nothing specific. So they didn't say no, but they didn't say yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Roberts?
Thank you, through the chair. I think, like we heard this morning in regards to where we stand, and I think, every one of us, and I think I can speak even for each one of us rurally, environment is very important, the things that we want to see happening. We want to make sure not only is it just voice or optics, that we are actually doing something. I think what we struggle on in regards to moving forward is, what is that process? How best to adjust the ESDP so that it can be effective. We've heard a lot from staff in regards to its ineffectiveness in our area. We've heard some discussion around other areas that it works or doesn't work. And as the euphemism was used in regards to throwing the baby out of the bathwater, it's like, do we take the baby out so we can fix the bathtub, or are we able to fix the bathtub with the baby in it, etc.? So, I personally struggle with, how do we move forward and make this work? Is it something that works best by adjusting the what has been recommended and then going back sequentially with our partners provincially and federally and building on it? Or is it something where you leave something in place as it stands, where it's inefficient, working, using staff time, etc. At the same time, you're trying to, again, double up on work to get the job done, to see it through to the future. So that's partly a statement, but it's partly also a question on my part in regards to our discussion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Director Gettins, you're next.
Thanks, Chair. I think I'm just gonna listen to a few more comments, sorry, and I'll come back to this.
I'll flag you. Director Ferdigo, you're next.
Thank you, through the chair. So a couple of things for me, at least for Area E, because I'm in the middle of a draft OCP review. I don't know that this is a great time to be throwing this in there when I have public hearings coming up in January. So I kind of like, from Area E's perspective, to be removed from this at the moment. So that way my community has some time to digest our OCP and then be able to throw in some input. And then as well, looking up at the Central Okanagan, just looking at their stuff. So they actually have an agricultural advisory committee and an environmental advisory commission. And so given the amount of knowledge that we had in the room this morning who spoke to this, I think that it might be interesting for us to look at putting together an advisory commission on the environment to help us work through some of these on how we can move forward with strengthening our development permits and where we can kind of go with those. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yep, Chair.
Well, I would first move the recommended motion.
Okay, let's move. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Moved or seconded. Okay.
And if I could speak to it a little bit. I have to agree with Director Roberts that I don't think there's a single one of us here that doesn't care about the environment. But from my perspective, what this is doing is eating up a lot of staff time and really for no end result that we can see. It was mentioned that it's working well in the RDCO and the RDNO, but even at that last study that we had done, or that the Canadian Wildlife Service had done, they never made mention that they had proof that it worked there. They would have mentioned that then if it was showing that it had measurable effects. And that's where the problem lies. I think it needs to be a refocus. It isn't that we're not caring about the environment. It's refocus where we put our energies. And that should be at the subdivision rezoning stage so that the planning can actually be done there. When there is a specific environmentally sensitive area that's noted by the QEPs, it's mapped, it's protected at that stage. When it's at the building permit stage, it's too late. Yes, you can tell them, well, you could move your house a little bit over there and avoid that. But in most cases, a lot of these are small lots that there isn't that wiggle room. So from my perspective, try as they might, this isn't something that we're doing because we don't care about the environment. It's where can we afford to focus our efforts? And I see it more at that subdivision stage.
Thank you. Director Knodel and then Monteith.
Thank you. Through the chair. The environmentally sensitive development permit is kind of where the rubber really meets the road for rural directors. This is a fundamentally flawed system, and it's resisted any form of correction as every area has its own uniqueness in many ways. The recent audit revealed a few possibilities, but all meaningful solutions at our level require a substantial amount of funding and also regulatory changes at the provincial level. Both must come from the provincial government before the ESDP system has any good hope of doing more good than harm. Change in any environmental regulation comes up against a dogma that is close to religion. The current system is viewed much like a Bible, and it's being taken on faith, and it only needs a little reworking to make golden. That is far from the truth. And in this case, and for some areas, it will in fact continue to allow serious damages to happen without consequence. First, better mapping is definitely needed, but that will cost many hundreds of thousands of dollars to do properly and will likely require specialists in a number of fields in order to cover all the variables in our ecology. This should be done by the province as it will overlap areas and jurisdictions. If it doesn't, it will already be proving itself ineffective. We will need funding for the staff necessary to carry out the assessments. The assessments must be done under a consistent guideline, which they aren't now, and staff will also be needed to do the reports, and for the monitoring, and for the enforcements. These also represent substantial amount, and these are funds that our residents do not have. Here is where the province needs to step up its game. Without the manpower funding and the needed regulatory changes, anything we do will soon be tested in court. As we have been advised, ticketing and follow-up monitoring enforcement are questionable actions, and there is the risk to the regional district becomes considerable. Court challenges on their own are costly, and a loss could also potentially result in substantial financial penalties. We have been told that the resources can be made available to us for all these purposes, but we also know that the people making these promises, while doing so in good faith, they are not the people who can initiate these negotiations. And those who can, without some type of leverage, consistently find more pressing issues at hand. We know currently the permit system is little more than a recommendation. There is no follow-up monitoring. There is no teeth in the enforcement. This virtually allows any action short of outright polluting. The review also revealed that 31% of the permits required were not necessary, as they are triggered by simple building permits on already developed properties. In other words, a totally unnecessary cost to the residents who in these cases are working in already developed properties. These unnecessarily consume considerable resources also. While we have the opportunity to correct one of the largest faults with this current system, and we also have the ability now to encourage and provide incentive for the province to join with us in creating a development permit system that can become a blueprint for the future. I do hope the representations that we have had put in front of us this morning will move on to the province where they need to be in order for us to initiate the needed work. Therefore, I will be supporting this recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Director. Thanks, Director Knodel. Director Monteith.
Thank you. Through the chair. I'm not prepared to play Russian roulette with my community and how passionate they are about this permit. You saw today with the number of people who came out. This morning I woke up to 29 emails. I got countless phone calls to return today. My community does value the permit as is. So I am asking for a friendly amendment to remove electoral area I from this bylaw changes.
Would that be a friendly amendment, or that's pretty big? I don't know who to ask. CAO. Yeah, it would have to be, I think it would have to be a full amendment, not a friendly amendment.
I think considering the bylaw's been to public hearing in a certain form, that to
Can't.
change it now
It's too far?
is very substantial.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, go ahead.
So through the chair, I did get bad advice then from the board because I have brought this forward that Electoral Eye was concerned about this and the board did push it forward, suggesting that we could go back and review it. So I'm disappointed if we can't do that now because that's exactly what I asked about that. So that's just, it's not fair.
CAO, do you have a follow-up to that?
Seeing that there's an issue here, I would defer it and we can get back to you.
Okay. I have a couple more speakers and then if somebody, Gettins is next.
I'm going to make a motion to defer this. And the reason I'm going to do that is I've been really frustrated with this process, like Director Monteith. And this idea, I'm going to back this up a little bit. I don't believe that this is actually a regional initiative. I took some time to go through all of the letters for the past few years. And it wasn't easy because there's quite a few letters. We've been talking about this for 3 years. And I removed all the subject matter experts who we've all heard from are very opposed. We've got a letter from our neighbors, Penticton Indian Band. We've got no support from anybody who is an expert in this field. So we have a lot of citizen letters. And when I went through them, I found that there is a few more in favor of not making these changes. So there's about 22 to 25, because I took out all the people that wrote more than once unless they had new information. Not perfect science, but here's my crack at it. If you remove the voice of Anarchist Mountain and Kampula, the 22 letters who are in favor of these change goes down to 3. That's 3 letters in favor of this. I don't disagree that Anarchist Mountain got a bad end of the stick when it came to mapping. Every example that we see is always of Anarchist Mountain. I think that was clearly a mistake. And it's not a regional driver for the area of F and I. Our mapping makes sense. It makes total sense. The people you heard from this morning have the mapping on their property. So if this is an Area A issue, which I believe it is, then let's fix that part of Area A. But let's not make this a regional initiative and risk the rest of it from not going forward. If we remove this, we will never get back to it. We have been talking about this since 2019. Before that, they had a review. I think that ended in 2017. It took 2 years to bring that review back from staff. At that time, staff recommended that this was working. All those recommendations about improving the map, improving the process, improving the checklist, we've heard that in 2016, then in 2019. 2023, we still haven't made any changes, and that's on this board. If we remove it, we're never going to talk about it again. We've got too much pressure of things that are happening. We've got too much pressure about making housing. So I'm asking the board, just let this stand. Let's get the help if we've got the help, and then let's make an actual educated decision that we're all on board with. That if we remove it now, we will not see it again this term. We just don't have the capacity. We've got too much work for everybody to do. But it's here, it's there, it's not perfect. Nobody thinks it's perfect, but let's get the help to fix it the best we can. And I don't want one area impacting Area F, Area I, any other Area E, anybody else that's with it. We've got large properties, and that continual development of larger properties of 1 acre or 2 acre, that matters. And so that's all I've got to say. So my motion is defer. We need to hear back what the offer is. We need to come up with the plan and not just throw this away.
Okay, so we have a motion, okay, and a seconder. There's no discussion on that, is there? So I will call the question. All in favor? Just rural. It's a rural rural. This is not to defer because this is this is only a rural issue.
To get into staff time, but deferment should be corporate.
Okay, well, I'm looking for, they're discussing it.
We had a weighted vote and my weight was, it's corporate.
Okay, so it'll be a corporate vote, all in favor of, there's no discussion on deferral. So all in favor of deferral? Opposed? Director Watt, we have one opposed, that carries. So this is deferred. Okay, I'll hand you back the chair. There is somebody online that keeps sending a message. Can somebody answer?
Go ahead, Director Watt, you have a...
Sorry, through the chair. If I may just, I wanted to just speak that my reason for opposing and not looking to defer is I would really like more direction on what we're looking for from the deferral process. I think that deferring was a wonderful idea, but without knowing what we're looking for from it, that's why I was opposed.
Okay. Just on that, in that vein, I think the question is specifically what was asked. Can one electoral area opt out at this stage? Can it be amended to do that? That was the question. So, yeah. Director Gettins?
So the reason that I wanted to defer it was partly to find out what we can do if there's some areas that don't want to be part of it. We also are waiting for information from the federal and provincial government. Those are the main reasons that I have, and then there was something else I was going to say now. Sorry, I forgot. I'll think about it in a sec.
Okay. So that brings us down to item C1, Finance, Area H, Community Works Gas Tax. CAO.
Thank you. So this recommendation is to contribute 1/3 of the cost to help maintain facilities in the Area H for the Area H residents, and it's for the fire hall roof replacement, and Memorial Park stand requires also a roof replacement. And so the recommended motion is that bylaw number 3060/2023, a bylaw to contribute to the town of Princeton for the roof replacement for the Princeton Fire Hall and concession roof at the Memorial Park for a total of $38,129.07 from the Electoral H Community Works Reserve Fund, be read a first, second, and third time and adopted.
Director Coyne.
I'd like to make the administrative recommendation, please.
Okay, moved, and lots of seconders I've gotten. Any discussion on it? Seeing no hands, again, this is a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. It's the end of C, down to D1, Legislative Services, Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy, CAO.
We do have a walk-in that for the Area I Community Works Gas Fund.
Oh, okay.
If I
You want to deal with that under the C?
Yes, it's C2.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead on it.
Okay, so this purpose is to fund a gas tax reserve for the purpose of doing water testing, and the recommended motion is that bylaw 3057/2023 being a bylaw to authorize expenditure of $20,082.66 for Electoral Area I Community Works Gas Reserve Fund for water assessment within Electoral Area I, be read a first, second, and third time and adopted. So what this is the assessment was needed for water systems for the fire hydrants and the pipes, and it was requested that we funded from the gas tax. Staff's here.
Director Monteith, I'm assuming you're moving it?
I do, yes.
Mover, seconder? Someone? Yes, please. Thank you. It's on the floor. Discussion. Go ahead, Director Monteith.
I just want to share through the chair that this will do all the fire hydrant testing for Cleedon, St. Andrews, and Apex. So it's a pretty good thing.
Okay. Director Ventimilla?
It sounds really good, but I just have a question on process. We didn't have an amended agenda approved today. Unless I don't have the current agenda, how does something like that make it onto the agenda?
CAO?
Defer that. Go ahead.
A walk-in?
Defer that to the...
The proper process would have been for the agenda to have been amended at the beginning of the meeting.
Good point. It should have
And now that
probably
it
been
hasn't.
dealt that way, but unless there's a real issue with it, we can amend the agenda now to accept it, or we can treat it as a walk-in and move on, so. You want to do it officially? So there's a motion to amend the agenda first before we deal with the other one? CAO?
You can amend the agenda with to add something during the meeting with a 2/3 vote.
Yes. Okay, so it's moved. I'm assuming you're seconding it. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion is carried. It's more than 2/3.
Oh, no,
No
I
opposed.
had something to say. I know it doesn't sound because it's just area I and gas tax, but I think process is important.
Yep.
Because it could be a bigger decision at another time. So I think that's okay to point it out. even
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we went the process of amending it to keep it official, so. Give her a pat on the back for that one. And we're back to that motion of the actual item. It's moved and seconded. Any discussion on it? Seeing no hands? Oh, Director Bush?
I know this is just area I, wouldn't this, something like this be good for all areas or?
Potentially, but I'll let it go to the CAO.
Definitely would, it would, and it's gas tax fundable.
If we've got fire hydrants, which
If
a
you-
lot of us don't in rural areas. So that's something to consider. I mean, Area D probably does, but I sure don't. And Director Monteith.
Through the chair, I'd be happy to share the contact.
Okay, good to know. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question on that. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now down to legislative services, the Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacy Bylaw Amendment, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. The Act states that a local public body must, by bylaw or other legal instrument, designate a person or group of persons as the head of the local public body for the purpose of the Act. The head is required to respond to requests for access to records under the custody or control of the public body. And the recommended motion is that bylaw 2519.02, being a bylaw to amend the Freedom of Information and Protection of bylaw privacy, be read a first, second, and third time and adopted.
Someone prepared to move it? It's moved. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Any discussion on this one? I think it's fairly straightforward, just a slight change that's needed with the changes we've made. So. Seeing no hands, call the question. Again, corporate. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to the board policy review, CAO.
Thank you. And this is a discussion that was made earlier. The recommended motion is that the enterprise unit data and services policy be adopted as amended, that the insurance coverage, rental, and personal vehicle director and alternate director accident insurance and the liability insurance policies be rescinded, and that the insurance policy be adopted. So that is one section of the recommendation. We also discussed the landfill policy, so that states that the landfill customer account policy be amended as presented.
Okay, it can all be dealt with at once if we want it to go that way. Moved, seconded. Any discussion on this? This was from this morning's committee. Seeing no hands, again, corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Where's the camera?
Believe that deals with everything down to CAO reports.
Just very quickly, staff's had meetings with MOTI regarding you are now entering regional district electoral area A, B, C, D, et cetera, and they seem receptive to it. What they've asked us is to find out where we would like those signs. So there'll be something going out. It has to be at the intersection from the highway towards the electoral area. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a push and not only ask that they put the sign in, but maybe our logo. So that's hopefully coming early next year.
Okay. Director Taylor, a question on that, I'm assuming, or for the CAO anyway? Go ahead.
Any other bits of information coming out of that meeting relative to Area D, but maybe for other areas as well?
Nothing that Area D would be happy about regarding the signs.
So kind of the no news is good news? No? Director Monteith?
Through the chair, I guess I'm curious about the signage because electoral area I is quite split up. So, you know, we've got Clayton, Twin Lakes, St. Andrews, Apex, goes through PIB. Like, how many signs does area I get? Like, what does that look like?
CAO.
We'll be asking for wherever there's a changeover from the provincial highway to the private, the electoral area, that's where there would be signs. And one of the other things is, like, again, I'm pushing maybe more than I should, but I would like to see, for instance, you are now entering electoral area G Headley. You're now entering electoral G period if there is no specifics.
Okay, so it would be on the main highways though?
It would have, it wouldn't be on the side roads. It has to be on the main highways. And in some areas, I recognize that the offshoot to the turnoff might have electoral I and C, for instance. And we'd have to take a look at how we handle that. There'll be something coming back once we get closer to the wording.
So at this stage, there would maybe be a sign where D and I are separated at that location.
Yeah, correct.
Entering area I, from the other direction, you were entering area D.
Correct.
Is that,
Well,
okay?
Or you're entering electoral area I and eventually whatever the wording
Whatever
is. Yes.
or the community is.
Yes.
Okay. Director Gettins?
Thank you. I feel like I've missed a meeting. Why are we doing the signs? And like, I don't understand why we're having this conversation, to be honest, because I think like what you're bringing up is really complex and yeah, why are we doing this?
CAO?
Put it on my strategic plan. So that's something that we've been talking about for a while. And once you gave me the position at the senior management level. And once you gave me the authority, I thought this is at no cost to us. And so I would be coming to the board for final approval. Right now it was at the conception stage, and all of a sudden there was not a problem. It was something that was so easily sold. I was successful in this in another city that I worked for, and they put it in there. And I, just because they did it once, I asked them to do it again.
Okay. Director Coyne?
Yeah, if you drive around the province, they have this all over the place. You drive up to Prince George, and as you're heading to Prince George, it tells you what regional district you're in, what electoral area you're in, just about all the way into the city. So it's not, they do it everywhere else. This is one of the few areas that I've never seen it.
I don't think we've ever asked before. So if you don't ask, you never get or receive. So Director Roberts and then Coyne Senior.
Thank you. Through the chair. I'm just wondering, those items that we dealt with in closed, some of them were to be brought. Is that to be this meeting or into January?
I'm going to rise and report on them later. Director Coyne.
Yeah, just on the signage issue, I have those signs in Area H on Highway 5A coming from the north down and also from the west coming east. But those are the only two. Doesn't tell you when you're leaving going east, but it's interesting. It must have been a policy that was in place years ago and then just kind of faded away. But anyway, just a note.
Okay, Director Monteith.
Through the chair, I just want to point out that I'll have an electoral area sign just before Okanagan Falls. Just pointing it out. So it's going to be really confusing.
We might have to look at that one, but.
We'll just say welcome.
Okay, nothing further on that. I'm not seeing any more hands. Anything further, CAO? Okay. Chair's report. The only thing I was going to report on was December 13th, I think it was. We had a meeting with the mayors up and down the valley and the native bands. Our first meeting, it was interesting. I think it has some potential, but it's pretty early in the process, so I can't say a whole lot at this stage, but it was interesting discussion, and I think it's worthwhile. It's just going to take some time to see if anything develops out of it as to whether we get a project that we can work on jointly. So with that, Director's motions. I have a motion on here from Director Gettens, I believe. So go ahead, please.
Thanks, Chair. Chair. I can say my son's name, Jay. I'm actually looking because Christy was supposed to be my partner in crime in wordsmithing this one, but what I'd like to do is put a motion forward that we bring back our correspondence policy and have staff bring it back for review. It's on there?
Yes.
Oh.
It must have been a late one onto eScribe.
Well, I don't have it. Okay, let me read it for 1 second. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Just what it says in your agenda. That's what I'd like to move, please.
Okay, so you're moving it. Is there a seconder for that? It's on the floor. Any discussion?
I'm happy just to talk about it for a
Sure,
minute if you're
please.
interested. Yeah, so.
Go ahead.
So in this role for the past 5 years, there's been 2 times when a variance has come forward, and there have been neighbors that have reached out and have had their concern, not with putting their name to their complaint, but having their name and their address for public consumption, like on our agendas or on our website. So not a public hearing, but a written down letter. And it's always been our policy to remove the address, but leave the name. And I think given how far advanced we are now with Googles and search, that doesn't really help protect anybody's identity or a way of being found. So what I was asked staff to do is to take a look at our policy. Christy's reached out to some of our, Ms. Milden's reached out to some of her colleagues, and there are some local governments that just keep the name back because we don't necessarily need it for public consumption. And I'd just like to kind of explore that a bit with the board and just in light of some of the things that have happened in different areas as well.
Okay, Director Taylor?
With some of the subject matter we've got coming up that deals with small communities within a community, I'm thinking short-term accommodations within condominium complexes. I think this would be important to find for staff to retain the names and be able to associate it with given letters, but I don't think that needs to be out publicly.
Okay, that's something to look at. Director Monteith?
Just to add to discussion, I also feel that sometimes having that name is important, right? Just making, sometimes you recognize a name, right? Or sometimes you can put pieces together. Maybe there's a way we receive that information kind of in camera, but the information that goes on the website is retracted.
Yeah, we'll see what comes back with the report. But Director Coyne, Senior, go ahead.
Yeah, I exactly what Director Matt just said. We have that. That's the biggest complaint issue that I get from these small, real remote communities, is that they don't want to start a neighbor issue by having their name posted on the internet. So if that's illegal, if there's a legal way to do that, that would put a lot of people's minds at ease. Anyway, just my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Watt, and then.
Thank you, the chair. And I'm sorry, I'm fully supportive of this coming back as a recommendation as to procedurally moving forward. Just curious, then we should also be looking at public hearings. People shouldn't have to identify their name or address under the same context. Because we receive a letter shouldn't be any different than showing up to a public hearing. And I actually, to be honest, I'm one of those people who actually thinks if you feel strongly enough to write a letter, you should actually be associated with it.
Yeah, that's a point to consider. Director, go ahead.
Thank you. I agree with Director Watt. I think that the internet's created kind of an anonymous society in a lot of ways. What I might recommend is that only if the person specifically says in their letter, please do not publish my name or whatever, I'd maybe leave it as a request to the person. Just an idea.
That's an option to consider. Thanks for that. I thought I'd seen, I'll go with Director Van Elfen and then just seen someone online.
Through the Chair to Corporate Services. So how does that work if I'm, there's a whole bunch of letters opposed to one of my variances, and so I FOI it. I want to do an FOI. I want to know who these people are who wrote these letters about my project.
Go ahead.
There's a section in the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act where the identity of a complainant is protected. So if we're talking about a bylaw infraction and a complaint with respect to that, those identities are already protected.
Okay, Director Gettins?
Thanks. And I don't know if we're really supposed to be debating this or not right now, but we do actually for the first time have a form now on the regional district where you can fill out a PDF and put it in. And so you could add a button, do you want your name shared or not? So there's a lot of reasons. There's a difference, I believe, when you show up in a public hearing that you know is going to be recorded and you say your name compared to writing letters. And we're getting sometimes with people where they're not speaking up because they're worried about the consequences of speaking up. And it's one of those things where we don't check ID. There's no requirements. Like you can do this however you want. I just think we would hear from more people if they had the option to say, you know what, in this particular case, I don't want my name shown. And that's what I'd like to explore a little bit more. And that's, it's also why now the Board of Variances meet in the boardroom and not on people's properties because things are changing a little bit out there. So that's why I've asked Christy to look into it, see what we can do legally, and then we can make a decision.
Okay. Director Miller?
Thank you. I think it's certainly worth discussing. I suppose if a bike gang was going to move into my neighborhood and operate an Airbnb, I'd be a little nervous to write in as well, because bike gangs don't like criticism. But again, it's worth exploring. But I think when a person puts their name to it, it adds a lot more credibility than if they remain anonymous. And I think if you're putting your name to it, chances are it's going to be more accurate and then relying on rumors. So I see both sides of it. So I would certainly be excited to see what would come back on this.
Okay. Director Coyne?
I'm just looking for some clarity. This isn't so we like staff and everybody don't see the names. It's just so that when we publish this document, it doesn't go to them, right? There's a big difference between that going out to the public and it staying in-house.
Yeah, I think that you do still need to supply your name and your address to staff, but you have the option to have that removed if you don't want it shared with everybody. And I know why it's nice to see the name, especially when you recognize somebody, but that's not the purpose. Anybody has the right to weigh in. You don't have more right because you live in that neighborhood. Everybody has the right. So we really shouldn't be using the names as a way to judge the validity anyway. It's just feedback. You can do feedback from anywhere you want. So we'll hear what we have to say. I think that there's some people out there that are being quiet that maybe have a good thing to say and they're a little bit nervous to do so.
Okay, seeing no more hands, we do have a motion on the floor. Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. So we'll see where that goes to. Director Monteith. I was going to just say any other director's motions. So I'm assuming that's what it is?
I do. So through the chair, I'd like to make a motion that staff bring forward a zoning options to address the on-site vehicle parking requirements at 300 Stray Horse Road at Apex.
Is that a notice of motion? Okay. Any other director's motions or notices of motions? Seeing none, we'll move on to board members' verbal updates. Anything from your areas or municipalities, communities? We'll ask Director Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, I put this through to the CAO earlier, but we had a community party, and I'd just like to let it be known to the board and to all the staff. The staff really put out, made it a lovely Saturday afternoon event, and a lot of staff put in some extra time. They had fun, but they really made a nice deal for the whole community. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that, and it was probably well attended. Yeah. Good. Anything else for verbal updates? Go ahead, Director Van Elfen.
Just Merry Christmas from the District of Summerland. And it's the is home of the best festival of lights in the Okanagan Valley.
Here we start that competition now. All right.
It's on.
That was a see if you can top this comment. All right, seeing no other things there. Board representations. Municipal finance and municipal insurance. No meetings right away. Okanagan Basin Water Board. I will ask Director Holmes, anything from there?
Yeah, a couple things at our last meeting, which was December 7th. We had a presentation from the Okanagan Nation Alliance on the restoration work they're doing at the lower reach of Trout Creek, which is being, which we're contributing funding to through the Conservation Fund. It was a pretty fascinating presentation about the real details about the work that they're doing there and how it all works together, how they're using Western science and traditional ecological knowledge together, and how it's the first time I really heard somebody explain to me, really how the two work together. And they just after putting in the first riffle pools, and they explained how those work as well. And the salmon came back to spawn the very first year they did that, and that's just the start of the project. So that was a pretty interesting presentation, and just we should get once at some point we should get them to come present to the board, because it's our funding that's supporting that project, and it's really good to see how a project that we're supporting is paying dividends. So that was one. And then just the other thing is the OBWB is going to be conducting a gap analysis on water planning from I think it's, maybe Director Knoll can clarify, but I think it's all local governments and improvement districts within the OBWB region. They'll be doing, they'll be reviewing all their water-related plans and policies, and including the state of drought and source water protection for residential and agricultural metering. It's quite a big project, and water rates. So I guess we'll have all that information. We'll be able to see what everybody in the whole Okanagan is doing in all these areas, and to make some pretty interesting comparisons, I think. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Down to Okanagan Film Commission. Anything there, Director Coyne?
Yeah, I had my first meeting with them. It was a short meeting. We're planning the strategic planning for, I think, in January, and just went over a couple of the projects that are looking at the area right now. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okanagan Regional Library. Anything there, Director Monteith? Nothing to report. Sterile insect release. Director Bush.
Yeah, I reported that the acreage had dropped, I think, from 7,000 down to 3,000 and some acres, and that was a mistake. I'd like to apologize. It's that 3,000 acres is the projected acreage in the next 5 years because of the declining acreage from grapes and stuff. But yeah, it's not that bad yet.
Okay,
thanks.
That's promising. Simia, anything there, Director Knodel?
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Starling Control, Director Bush?
Not sure if I shared it last time, but we did have a meeting, and I think we're celebrating 1 million birds that have been caught.
Wow.
Thank you.
So, it's a large number.
Release them down south.
Director Bush?
That was lunch today.
They, a lot of them get fed to the falcon people, falcon and owls. Yeah, they love to eat the birds.
Yeah. Starling Control Economic Trust. Oh, gosh, Director Bloomfield, you got anything on that? The other two are away. So.
Yeah, we had a nice little surprise that the funding allocations that went out, we were able to fund all of the applications, and 2 that were denied on the previous influx of applications. simply because the higher interest rates had yielded a higher return, and so we had actually more cash to shelve out. So there is a good side to inflation, I guess, and meant more projects got financed.
Okay, thanks for that. It's kind of a little bit of good news. That brings us down to G, which are items coming out of the closed session. Now, we dealt with them in closed. I'm assuming we got CAO that we need to move these in this session as well. So I've got them listed here. I'll read them out, or Ms. Molden, do you have them and you want to read it out? And then we can either get it moved. People are tired of hearing my voice, I'm thinking.
So the first two recommendations coming out of in-camera is with respect to appointment of officer positions, that the Board of the Regional District name Noel Evans McEwen as the Chief Financial Officer, statutory position for the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, and that the Board of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen name Christy Malden as the Regional District Deputy Chief Administrative Officer. I know.
Okay. We'll start with that. Moved, seconded, thank you. Discussion on it? Not missing any hands. This would be a corporate vote, obviously, so I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next one, Ms. Molden?
The next one is coming out of in-camera, Protective Services Committee, that the Board of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen directs staff to implement the changes which were recommended in the December 21st, 2023 in-camera report from the Chief Administrative Officer.
Regarding the protective services. Okay, just so we recall what that was about. The changes to the protective services moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion on that one? Make sure I'm not missing any hands. Again, corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the final one?
Final one is, again, discussed in camera at committee this morning with respect to staff retention pilot project, that staff be directed to formalize an administrative strategy which incorporates flexible scheduling to enhance employee retention efforts for implementation in 2024, and that the strategy be considered as a pilot project for the duration of 1 calendar year, with the results of the pilot project communicated for consideration of a permanent flexible schedule.
Okay, someone prepared to move that one? Moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion on this one? Again, corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. That actually completes our agenda for today. But before we go out of or adjourn the meeting, I'll just wish everybody a happy holidays and all the best in the upcoming new year. And we'll see you guys then. But look for a motion to adjourn before we get there. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I want to stay later. What can I say? Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, yeah. That hat reminds me.